If the heavenly Tao had no master, Qin's plan would have succeeded. After all, the heavenly Tao had replaced the great Tao of the 9 zones, and had thus inherited its fate. If the heavenly Tao did not have a master, Qin could use the fate of the heavenly Tao to merge with his main body and control a portion of the heavenly Tao. However, the heavenly Tao did have a master, which meant that Qin's plan would not work. Chu Zan pondered how to deal with Qin's plan. Should he allow Qin to enter the heavenly Tao and become a creature of the heavenly Tao like Huanglong? To be more precise, a divine being of the heavenly Tao. Or should he just expel him? It would be a pity to directly expel Qin. He was not weak, and his talent was monstrous. His comprehension ability was extremely high, which was why he had managed to create the human race's first cultivation method. Furthermore, Qin's main body had reached the 40 million mile mark. For such an expert to become a divine being of the heavenly Tao, it would be quite beneficial to the heavenly Tao. However, what Chu Zan valued more was his comprehension ability. If Qin became a divine being of the heavenly Tao and gained insight into the supreme laws of the chaos, would he be able to help the heavenly Tao devour and replace the supreme laws of the chaos? Would it accelerate the process of the heavenly Tao becoming one of the 9 supreme laws of the chaos? Qin's clone had extremely dense fate. Before the heavenly Tao, he had been blessed by the great Tao, and now, he was still blessed by the heavenly Tao. Furthermore, Chu Zan could sense a trace of the aura of a supreme law of the chaos from Qin's clone, which meant that the other party had some understanding of the supreme laws of the chaos. If the clone was capable of this, then would the main body not be even more extraordinary? Perhaps making him a divine being of the heavenly Tao was truly the right way forward. He Yu, Chu Yi, and his other disciples had extraordinary levels of talent. However, they were still too far away from comprehending a supreme law of the chaos. None of them had even reached the world creator realm. Moreover, He Yu and Chu Yi were destined to not stay within the heavenly Tao. In terms of talent, comprehension ability, and the abundance of his fate, Qin was the best candidate. Chu Zan had an idea. As for the specifics, it would depend on Qin's methods. In the chaos, a powerful existence was heading toward the 9 zones. Was that prison Tao ancient god? When Chu Zan saw who was approaching, he instantly understood his strength. Prison Tao ancient god had reached the 39 million mile mark, and was slightly weaker than Qin. As an ancient chaos god, he also had an extremely powerful body and a Tao path that was stronger than ordinary chaotic beings. However, prison Tao ancient god was no longer worthy of Chu Zan's attention. Still, there had to be a basis for his arrogance, overbearingness, and insolence, and why so many experts were not willing to offend him. Logically speaking, his strength should not have been enough to make so many experts back down. Chu Zan looked on pensively as prison Tao ancient god approached. Prison Tao ancient god was neither fast nor slow, exuding an aura of majesty as he moved. With each step, a small abyss would appear in the chaos beneath his feet. As he left, the small abyss did not disappear for a long time, much like a trail of footprints in the chaos. Outside the divine world, the gazes of Mo Yao and the others were gloomy as they stared at Qin and the others who were approaching the 9 zones. They had decided to join forces. Even though Qin was strong, the combined forces of Mo Yao, Yao, and Mo Shui were still able to contend against him. They would leave Chu and Ji to Kun Ji Yu and the others. At the very least, they had numbers on their side. At this moment, a terrifying aura swept out from behind them. Mo Yao and the others were all stunned. The arrogant and insolent aura made them think of an extremely petty and unscrupulous ancient chaos god. Prison Tao ancient god. Among the many ancient chaos gods, he was one of the most active, but simultaneously one of the weaker, ancient chaos gods. No one knew how many ancient chaos gods there were in the chaos. After all, most of them were mysterious and usually cultivating somewhere silently. Over the long years, no one knew how many ancient chaos gods had fallen. There had once been an expert who had explored the place where an ancient chaos god had fallen and obtained some great opportunities. From this, it could be seen that some of the ancient chaos gods had died. Prison Tao ancient god was the most well-known ancient chaos god. He was also the one with the worst reputation. Mo Yao turned around, frowning. The huge figure was walking over step by step. Was he here to target the demon race? Yao also frowned. Was he here to target the immortal race? Both their sides had slain prison Tao ancient god's subordinates not too long ago. Tai's expression changed. He gripped the jade talisman tightly and retreated in the direction of the ancient chaos world. If prison Tao ancient god were to attack him, he would have to use the jade talisman. Prison Dao Ancient God looked down at the group of experts who had transcended the world creator realm. Although Mo Yao, Mo Shui and Yao were not weak, he did not take them seriously at all. Qin, kill yourself. Everyone was stunned. Prison Dao Ancient God had come for Qin. Thinking back, they recalled that Qin had been standing on top of a prison god palace, and had destroyed it upon arrival. Prison Dao Ancient God's subordinates within it had obviously been killed by Qin. The demons were overjoyed. If Prison Dao Ancient God joined their side, the human race would undoubtedly be exterminated. Senior Prison Dao, Qin is treacherous and the human race is arrogant. Why don't we join forces to destroy the human race? Mo Shui said. Prison Dao Ancient God was getting closer and closer. You can make your move. I will deal with Qin. Prison Dao Ancient God looked at Qin and the others. He raised his hand, and a terrifying power began to gather in his palm. Chaos Abyss Technique. This was Prison Dao Ancient God's signature technique, and the one he had used to suppress and kill countless experts. Qin raised his head to look at Prison Dao Ancient God. Prison Dao, he sneered, you're just a useless ancient chaos god. How dare you be so arrogant? He looked at Chu and said, we only need to hold off Mo Yao and the others for a moment. Today, we'll kill an ancient chaos god. Chu was shocked. They looked at him in horror. Kill an ancient chaos god? Prison Dao Ancient God was extremely powerful, especially his Chaos Abyss technique, which was said to be invincible among those of the same level. Even though Qin was comparable to Prison Dao Ancient God in terms of strength, could he resist the Chaos Abyss technique? However, since Qin had said so, Chu could only choose to believe him. Don't worry, we'll definitely block them as best as we can. Prison Dao Ancient God's eyes were cold. Impudent. As his palm struck, the space around it deformed, as if it was about to turn into a chaotic abyss. Mo Yao and the others also made their moves. Qin roared and he threw a punch, condensing a huge golden fist imprint. Boom! The mini abyss collapsed, and space was torn apart. With a wave of Chu's hand, a strange phenomenon appeared. It was as if a world had appeared above him, blocking the attacks of the demons. Those who had not transcended the world creator realm were not qualified to participate in this battle. More and more fist imprints were condensed, and Chu continued to strengthen the world above him. Boom! With each strike, portions of the world Chu had created collapsed, but at the same time, they were constantly being restored. Chu was purely defending. Qin glanced at Chu. The world technique he was using had extremely strong defensive capabilities. It was as if he was using an entire world to defend against the attacks. Qin threw another punch. The golden fist imprint illuminated the chaos and continuously destroyed the Chaos Abyss technique of Prison Dao Ancient God. Damn it! Prison Dao Ancient God became even more furious. A black, round disc appeared in his hand, which then transformed into a prison. It pressed down on Qin and the others. Qin threw a few punches, but was unable to break the prison apart. HMPH. Qin snorted coldly. A large halberd appeared in his hand, which he swung toward the prison. The halberd and the prison were in a stalemate. Hold on for a moment. Qin sent a voice transmission to Chu. He turned around and descended toward the world. Yao and the demons all frowned. What was Qin trying to do? It was obviously impossible to enter the 9 zones. They felt a little uneasy. Prison Dao Ancient God attacked again and again, constantly suppressing the halberd, and it was on the verge of breaking. Block him for a moment. Ji left and allowed Chu to block the demons alone. He raised his hand and pointed, and the aura around his body condensed to the extreme. A powerful beam burst forth. Boom! It pierced a massive hole through the prison. On the other side, Kui had already taken a few steps back. The world he created continued to collapse, as it seemed like it could not hold on any longer. Zan and Shui Lian helped as much as they could. Looking back, Qin was getting closer and closer to the 9 zones. At this moment, from the 9 zones, a powerful energy began to surge, and a huge figure appeared. That's Qin. Yao's expression changed. Stop him. Damn it. Qin had a clone in the 9 zones and had accumulated a huge amount of the world's fate. A sword appeared in Yao's hand. Holding the sword in his hand, he charged toward Qin. Mo Shui and Mo Yao also instantly exploded with power, shattering the world created by Chu. They were shocked. How did Qin do it? When did he leave a clone in the 9 zones? Gritting his teeth, Chu decided to go all out. Once Qin succeeded, the human race would have no more worries. The 9 zones would become the world of the human race. You've got guts. HMPH. Prison Dao Ancient God angrily snorted. His huge body instantly swooped down, and a huge abyss descended. Ji's expression changed. His extreme Tao transformed into a long spear and flew into the abyss. This was the first time he had been forced to show his extreme Tao. Boom! Although his extreme Tao was strong, he was still far weaker than Prison Tao Ancient God. He could only resist for a moment. On the other side, it was not just Yao and the two demons who attacked. The other experts of the 9 zones who had transcended the world creator realm also attacked. Kun Ji Yu also rushed over. With one palm, Chu pushed Zan and Shui Lian behind him. His body grew huge, and a world appeared around his body as he resisted the attack with all of his might. Qin and his clone fused together in an instant. In that instant, his expression changed. He could not control the laws of the great Tao. How could this be? At the same time, the name of the heavenly Tao appeared in his mind. His heart paled in horror. The great Tao of the 9 zones was gone, and was replaced by the heavenly Tao. How could this be? The plan that he had prepared for a long time had all come to nothing. How could he accept this? The fate energy of the heavenly Tao gushed into his body, and his divine soul was undergoing a transformation, as if it had become one with the heavenly Tao. Gradually, he discovered that in the instant his main body and clone fused, the heavenly Tao's power was incomparably powerful, and he had the ability to use this power for a short period of time. He turned around. Whether it was Ji or Chu, they were both in danger. His plan had not worked out, and the great Tao of the 9 zones was gone. He did not become the ruler of the 9 zones as he had hoped. His heart was filled with unwillingness. However, Chu and Ji were both in danger. He had to make a move. Chu's world was about to collapse. Chu was using the world of that ancient expert he had devoured, which was why he had such powerful strength. Facing the attacks of Yao, Mo Shui, Mo Yao and Kun Ji Yu, he was able to hold on for a while. Were it not for the fact that he was stalling for time, Chu would actually be able to escape. This was also one of the reasons why Chu was so confident. If he really could not defeat them, he could bring the human race's experts into this world and escape into the chaos. As long as he was given time, he could easily stand shoulder to shoulder with the 3 ancestors. Die! Qin roared in anger. He took advantage of the fact that he could wield the power of the heavenly Tao for a short time, and threw one punch at Prison Tao Ancient God, and another at Mo Yao and the others. Retreat! A terrifying power tore through the chaos, destroying the prison with a single punch and leaving a massive wound on Prison Tao Ancient God's body. Ji was extremely shocked. Could it be that Qin had succeeded in fusing his 2 bodies? The Supreme Lord did not stop him. He grabbed Qin's halberd and retreated frantically. The other punch was equally overbearing. The expressions of Yao and the others changed, as they defended with all of their might. Boom! They were sent flying back in a sorry state while countless cracks appeared on Mo Shui's body. The 2 experts from the other races of the 9 zones who had transcended the world creator realm instantly exploded. Their Tao paths collapsed, and their worlds turned into nothingness. However, they were not dead. Faced with that terrifying punch, they had dispersed their Tao paths and worlds voluntarily to avoid the fatal blow. Still, it would take them a long time to recover from this. Everyone was shocked. Could it be that Qin had succeeded? Had he managed to control the laws of the great Tao of the 9 zones? The wound on Prison Tao Ancient God's chest was slowly recovering. He was enraged. Qin, you deserve to die. His huge body swooped down again and waved its hand. In the depths of the chaos, a tremor rumbled. A huge chaos abyss broke away and flew towards the 9 regions. Prison Tao's chaos abyss. Prison Tao Ancient God immediately used his chaos abyss in an attempt to completely destroy Qin. Chu and the others retreated to Qin's side in shock. He was too strong. A single punch had heavily injured Prison Tao Ancient God. In the chaos, the huge chaos abyss was heading toward the 9 zones. Prison Tao Ancient God was completely enraged. The chaos abyss that he used to suppress powerful enemies was being moved over to suppress the Qin and the others. In Heiyu's residence, Hua Shui's expression suddenly changed as he sensed changes within his main body. It was actually getting closer and closer. What was going on? He raised his head and looked out into the chaos. He could not see clearly, but he could vaguely tell that something had happened outside the world. A huge chaos abyss was bearing down on the 9 zones. The size of this chaos abyss was no smaller than the 9 zones. Chu Zan raised his head. The chaos abyss was extremely powerful, far more powerful than Prison Tao Ancient God himself. It had clearly been formed from a supreme treasure. It seemed that in order to suppress Hua Shui, Prison Tao Ancient God had paid a significant price. Now, in order to suppress Qin, the latter had not hesitated to use the chaos abyss. After being suppressed for so many years, Shui had long since run out of strength and was no longer a threat to him. In addition, Prison Dao Ancient God clearly also wanted to completely exterminate the suppressed Shui. The Heavenly Dao ultimately needed experts. This time, with the Chaos Abyss bearing down on them, the world needed an expert to save it. Therefore, a divine being of the Heavenly Dao would appear. Qin was very suitable for this. Having ruined the latter's plans, Chuzan could not allow him to lose out. Becoming a divine being of the Heavenly Dao would be an opportunity for him. After all, the potential of the Heavenly Dao was boundless. At this moment, Qin's divine soul was undergoing a change. Chu suddenly realized something was wrong. Ji also noticed. Qin did not control the laws of the great Dao of the 9 zones as he had expected. Ji was in a state of deep thought. Qin's expression changed again and again, and he said quietly, "There's been a great change in the 9 zones. The great Dao has disappeared, and has been replaced by the Heavenly Dao. The Heavenly Dao has replaced the great Dao." Chu's expression changed. The great Dao of the 9 zones had been replaced. Qin grabbed the halberd. "Go hide in the Heavenly Dao. I'll kill Prison Dao Ancient God," Qin said. At this moment, Qin made up his mind. Only by killing Prison Dao Ancient God and snatching the latter's fate as an ancient chaos god could he possibly change the current situation. Otherwise, he would definitely be bound by the Heavenly Dao. Since the plan had failed, he did not want to be bound. He used the fate energy of the Heavenly Dao to cover Chu and the others so that they would not be expelled. Thanks to the power of rejection, Mo Yao and the others would not be able to approach them. Die! Qin roared in rage as his body grew in size. In the blink of an eye, he had turned into a terrifying figure that was 1,000,000 feet tall. His entire body glowed with golden light. With the halberd in hand, he charged at Prison Dao Ancient God. At this moment, Qin's aura and strength were unparalleled. Although it had not reached the 50,000,000-mile mark, it was not far off. Boom! The halberd was like a dragon, and Qin charged into the huge chaos abyss overbearingly. The golden halberd tore through the chaos abyss, piercing a hole through it as it made its way toward Prison Dao Ancient God. HMPH. Prison Dao Ancient God coldly snorted. The massive chaos abyss started to shrink. At the same time, he flung out a palm strike and activated the chaos abyss technique, causing layers of deformed space to appear in front of Qin. The huge chaos abyss began to surround Qin. Qin passed through one layer after another, getting closer and closer to Prison Dao Ancient God. Even though Prison Dao Ancient God had only reached the 39,000,000-mile mark, he was still incredibly powerful. The power of an ancient chaos god and the uniqueness of his innate Dao path were revealed at this moment. The chaos abyss was also immensely powerful, as it had been formed by a supreme treasure that was compatible with his innate Dao path. At this moment, it had turned into a huge cage and was shrinking, trying to suppress Qin. Chuzan looked at the battle outside the world and sighed. Ancient chaos gods were indeed incomparable to other living beings. They were born with the fate of the chaos. Prison Dao Ancient God's supreme treasure also increased the power of his innate Dao path by at least 30%. Of course, Qin was also incredibly powerful, and it would not be so easy for Prison Dao Ancient God to suppress him. Moreover, Shui, who was suppressed in the chaos abyss, was also looking for an opportunity to escape. The battle was extremely intense. Qin was undergoing a transformation, and transforming into a divine being of the Heavenly Dao. Chuzan knew his intentions to kill Prison Dao Ancient God to seize the latter's fate as an ancient chaos god and break away from the Heavenly Dao. However, he had obtained such a huge amount of Heavenly Dao's fate energy, so it would not be easy to escape the Heavenly Dao. Furthermore, becoming a divine being of the Heavenly Dao was also a great opportunity. Had it been someone else, Chuzan would never have allowed them this opportunity. The demons made their move. As they were unable to approach Chu and the others, they chose to join forces with Prison Dao Ancient God to suppress Qin, which delighted Prison Dao Ancient God, who was desperate to suppress Qin. Qin was becoming more and more of a threat to him. Moreover, the aura surrounding Qin's body made him uneasy. It was as if some sort of transformation was about to happen. Yao did not make a move, but Kun Jiyu also attacked. Qin was furious, but he was starting to get anxious. He was about to transform, and he had no idea whether this was a good or bad thing. It was precisely because things were uncertain and not within his control that he desperately wanted to escape. Chu sighed. He had to make a move. Otherwise, Qin would not be able to deal with so many experts, let alone kill Prison Dao Ancient God. An ancient chaos god was not that easy to kill. You guys hide here. Chu chuckled and charged out. Come, Mo Yao, Kun Ji Yu. Yao's figure flickered, and he was about to block Chu. Yao, are you immortals really going to walk down this path to the end because of Miao's mistake? Chu sneered. Do you really think that I can't do anything to your immortal race? Miao's death must be avenged, Yao said with a cold face. What a joke, Qin was just seeking revenge. Miao brought it upon himself. Chu waved his hand, and the world phenomenon appeared. If you want to interfere, then let's fight. The world instantly enveloped Kun Ji Yu. Kun Ji Yu, if you insist on teaming up with the demons, then don't blame me for being ruthless. The power of his Dao path surged, and Kun Ji Yu, who was inside the world, had his strength suppressed. Kun Gu's expression changed. With the sword in his hand, his sleeves fluttered in the wind as the power of his Dao path struck the world. Chu left the range of the heavenly Dao and headed straight for Mo Shui. He could not tie them down for long, as they were all so powerful. Mo Shui, come and fight me. Qin charged at Prison Dao Ancient God, but with Mo Shui and Prison Dao Ancient God working together, he felt immense pressure. The Chaos Abyss was condensing into a cage and trying to suppress him. At this moment, he was in the Chaos Abyss. Sensing the struggle of a blood-red figure in the Chaos Abyss, he turned around and charged into the Chaos Abyss. Thank you for your help, fellow Taoist. Once I'm free, we'll join forces to kill the Prison Dao Ancient God. Hua Shui's true body contorted into a twisted face. After being constantly suppressed by the Chaos Abyss, he was actually a little weak. Moreover, he had even separated a portion of his origin essence to create that clone. Boom! Qin's halberd continued to attack the Chaos Abyss. Mo Yao roared, and his roiling demonic power came crashing toward Qin. Prison Dao Ancient God's massive body began to exude a terrifying light. He waved his hands, and the layers deformed space stacked up and gathered. The chaotic space in front of him was constantly being compressed and shattered, revealing the broken spatial laws. The layers then reinforced the Chaos Abyss, attempting to suppress Qin and Hua Shui once and for all. At this moment, a blinding light appeared in the chaos. A terrifying, scorching light burst forth from the chaos, charging toward the demons. Demons, it's time to repay your debt. A voice rang out. It was a young voice, but it was filled with sorrow. It was as if he was a person who had been through bitterness and torture. In his heart, there was only endless sorrow. A young man emerged from the chaos. He was a human, however, his body was huge and his physical body was extremely strong. Although his body was not as strong as a giant's, it was much stronger than a human's. His handsome and masculine face was filled with sorrow, and he held a burning saber in his hand. The saber glowed as red as blood, and it was extremely hot. Then, he swung the saber repeatedly at the closest demon, which happened to be Mo Shi. Mo Shi was shocked. A vortex appeared in front of him, and the power of his Dao path erupted in an attempt to resist the scorching and terrifying saber beams. Mo Shui roared in anger and was forced to retreat. The waves of blood soared into the sky as he returned to aid Mo Shi. Chi chi. The blood waves emitted sizzling sounds as they continuously evaporated and weakened. Mo Shui and Mo Shi joined forces, but they could not block the terrifying and scorching saber beams. Ji moved and charged towards the experts of the races of the ancient chaos world. Since you dared to interfere, you will have to pay the price. Kun Ji Yu, who was trapped in Chu's world, immediately turned pale. Chu, I'm backing out. I won't interfere in this matter anymore. Do you think it's that easy to leave just because you want to? Chu laughed. Ji, don't hurt our allies. A portion of the experts of the races of the ancient chaos world had been roped in by Chu. The experts of the ancient chaos world who had transcended the world creator realm were shocked, and hurriedly joined forces to resist Ji. However, Ji was extremely powerful. Not long after the battle began, one of the experts of the ancient chaos world was forced to disperse his Dao path and world to avoid a fatal strike. The demons roared and came out of the chaos abyss. They looked at the young man gloomily. Swish, demons, you should all disappear. The young man charged at them. His aura was like a rainbow and he was extremely powerful. Moreover, he was prepared to die. It's time for you to pay me back for the harm you've caused me. As he spoke, he looked at the immortal race. He looked at Piao. Piao, you didn't stop Miao back then, and you didn't stop him now either. Let's cut off all ties between us today. He looked at Yao. If you think Miao is right, then come at me. I can handle it. Yao's figure paused. After a long while, he sighed. Piao's expression became more and more complicated as she looked at the young man for a long time. Stop. Yao looked at Chu. Leave Miao's matter to my master to decide. I won't interfere. A crack appeared in the world, and he left. Meanwhile, Chu looked at Kun Ji-yu. There's a price to pay for your interference. Kun Gu's expression changed. Chu, stop. I won't interfere in the affairs of the human race. Disperse your Dao path and world, then I'll spare your life, Chu said. Kun Gu's expression changed. He would not die if he dispersed his Dao path and world. However, he would need some time to recover. If you don't do it, how can I know for sure that you won't attack again? Chu's world began to shrink. The elements of lightning, wind and fire in the world continued to strike Kun Ji-yu. If I disperse my Dao path and world, who will hold the fort in the ancient chaos world? Kun Ji-yu roared. If he really dispersed his Dao path and world, the ancient chaos world would be open to the attacks of the other experts. At this moment, a giant as large as a mountain appeared. I will guard the ancient chaos world. Kun Gu's expression changed. Chong, he was the eldest of the 18 ancestors of the giant race, and also the one who had taught the humans the body tempering technique. Chu continued to shrink the world and suppress Kun Ji-yu. Kun Ji-yu felt a sense of danger. He was no match for Chu. If he did not take the initiative to disperse his Dao path and world, it would be difficult for him to recover once Chu destroyed them. Boom! Kun Gu's body exploded, and his Dao path scattered. His world merged with the chaos. Chu, make Ji stop. Kun Ji-yu dispersed his Dao path and world. Only a wisp of his condensation was observing the changes in the situation in the chaos. He could no longer interfere in this battle. Ji retreated. A great battle between the young man and Mo Yao broke out. Chu laughed and moved to block Mo Shui and the others. Chong hovered in the chaos and looked around. This is a grudge between him and Mo Yao. Outsiders are not allowed to interfere. Big brother. Tai was pleasantly surprised. Tai, you should work hard on your cultivation. You're so weak. How embarrassing. Chong looked at him and said. Tai's face darkened and he cursed inwardly. With the arrival of reinforcements, the situation had changed again. Only the great battle between Qin and Prison Dao Ancient God, and the battle between the young man and Mo Yao remained. Chu moved to help Qin. Qin's halberd swept out, continuously shattering the chaos abyss. You don't need to help me. He wanted to kill Prison Dao Ancient God and snatch his fate. He even wanted to kill the suppressed Hua Shui. Qin displayed no fear fighting Prison Dao Ancient God one-on-one. For the time being, he abandoned any thoughts of rescuing Hua Shui. He was bombarding the chaos abyss that was pressing down on him. He slowly began to approach Hua Shui, as if wanting to rescue the latter so that they could work together to deal with Ancient God Prison Dao. In truth, Qin wanted to kill Hua Shui. A trapped and weak Ancient Chaos God was much easier to kill. Killing Prison Dao Ancient God was simply too difficult. Moreover, he could not wait any longer. He had to seize the fate of an Ancient Chaos God as soon as possible and find a way to break away from the Heavenly Dao. The battle between the young man and Mo Yao was the most intense. One slash after another, the scorching light continuously destroyed the roiling demonic power. Even though his body was covered in injuries, he did not defend himself. His eyes were bloodshot, and he seemed to have gone crazy. Mo Yao roared repeatedly, but he was extremely shocked and angry inside. Qian was actually this strong. Chu Zan was observing the ongoing battles. It was really exciting. Qian had appeared, the person that Yun admired. He was the one who had brought the body tempering technique to the human race from the giant race after being saved by Chong. The giant race had protected the human race because of him. From Chu Zan's perspective, Qian had already gone crazy. T.L. Mo Yao was previously translated as Mo Yi in an earlier chapter. This has been rectified. He only had one obsession, which was to kill Mo Yao, which had driven him to become stronger. His family and friends had been eaten by Mo Yao in front of him. The person he once loved had also died. Even the disappearance of the heavenly fox race had something to do with Mo Yao. There was only one obsession. Killing Mo Yao and getting his revenge was the only thing that kept him sane. Also, it was no wonder the giant race managed to remain neutral, and neither side dared to target the giant race rashly. Chong was very close to the 50 million mile mark. He was close to Qian and prevented others from interfering. Unless the three ancestors personally came, none of their personal disciples were Chong's match. Moreover, giants had extremely strong bodies, so Chong would probably have no problem fighting two experts who had reached the 50 million mile mark. Chu Zan even sensed a special aura from Chong, similar to that of an ancient chaos god. The giant race was probably the descendants of some ancient chaos god. Qin's goal was clear. He wanted to seize the fate of an ancient chaos god and escape from the heavenly Tao. Prison Tao ancient god was difficult to kill, so he had set his sights on Washui instead. However, Chu Zan knew that even if he did so, he would not be able to escape from the heavenly Tao. Furthermore, the fate energy would be fused into the heavenly Tao to improve it. This was a good thing. Chu Zan was very optimistic about Qin. He believed that after he became a divine being of the heavenly Tao, he would be able to bring even more improvements to the heavenly Tao. As for Washui's true body, it was likely that he would die. This was inevitable. After all, he had been suppressed by Prison Tao ancient god for so many years and was in a weakened state. He would be unable to resist the combined suppression of the Chaos Abyss and Qin's assault. However, since he was now Heiyu's subordinate, Washui's true body is about to be destroyed. You tell him that this is an opportunity to escape the Chaos Abyss, Chu Zan's voice rang out in Heiyu's mind. Hearing this, Heiyu summoned Washui. Your true body is in danger. Washui's expression changed. He could now connect to his true body, so he immediately thought of Qin after hearing this. He then realized that Qin had the intention to kill him. His true body would definitely not die so easily, Buddha. My lord, is there a way to save it? Washui asked. You can't save your true body, Heiyu said after a moment of silence. You can't retain your fate as an ancient chaos god either, but I can preserve a part of your divine soul and let it fuse with your clone. In the future, your clone will be your true body. He would lose his fate as an ancient chaos god and his true body. The losses were unbearable. Washui had a complicated expression. He knew that this was the best possible outcome. However, in his heart, he was unwilling. After losing his true body and the fate of the ancient chaos god, it would be impossible for him to recover his peak strength and take revenge. My lord, is there any way to preserve a wisp of my fate as an ancient chaos god? I can use this to recover my status as an ancient chaos god, Washui asked hesitantly. If he lost his true body, but retained a wisp of his fate as an ancient chaos god, he would be able to recover and eventually become an ancient chaos god again, though this would take a long time. The significance of being an ancient chaos god was extraordinary. It was not just about talent and aptitude, but also about the innate Tao path that was easier to extend and more powerful. Heiyu was silent for a moment. She then asked for Chu Zan's opinion. Sure, I'll allow him to talk to Qin personally. Chu Zan nodded. Having an ancient chaos god as a subordinate was a good thing for Heiyu. After getting Chu Zan's permission, Heiyu looked at Washui and said, you can now contact Qin and talk to him personally. Many thanks, my lord. Washui said gratefully. He immediately closed his eyes and connected his consciousness with his true body. The originally impossible connection was now unobstructed. Qin continued to hack away at the Chaos Abyss, and Washui's true body was about to break out of the seal. Qin did not seem to mind the cage becoming more and more solid and the Chaos Abyss shrinking toward him. OCE he had killed Washui and seized the latter's fate, he would break away from the heavenly Tao in one fell swoop, regain his freedom, and kill his way out of the Chaos Abyss. At this moment, Washui suddenly said, I know you want to kill me and seize my fate as an ancient chaos god. Qin was stunned. Without waiting for a response, Washui continued, I've been suppressed for countless years, and I only want freedom and revenge. I'm willing to retain only a wisp of my fate as an ancient chaos god and give you the rest. But you have to promise me one thing. Washui then dove down into the Chaos Abyss, clearly avoiding Qin. If you don't agree, he continued, it won't be easy to kill me, let alone steal my fate. What condition? Tell me. Qin's face darkened. The other party had actually realized his intentions, so he would be unable to take Washui by surprise. In such a situation, it would take a long time to kill the other party. However, he could not wait any longer. Kill Prison Tao ancient god. Washui angrily said, he's a despicable scoundrel. If you agree, I'll let you kill me and seize my fate. All right, I agree, Qin said without hesitation, I have a grudge against him. He had originally wanted to kill Prison Tao ancient god anyway. That's great. As Washui spoke, a wisp of his fate energy disappeared, and his true body reappeared, breaking through the seal. Just kill me. With these final words, Washui drew a part of his divine soul into his clone, along with a wisp of his fate as an ancient chaos god. Qin's eyes lit up. With a furious roar, he swung his halberd, splitting the layers of the chaos abyss in front of him and killing Washui's true body. Boom! Blood-red light trembled, and a Tao path shattered. The fate energy started to spread, but Qin quickly gathered it toward himself. Boom! A blood-colored light erupted through the chaos abyss, turning Hua Shui's body into dust. At this moment, a bloody mark appeared in the chaos. After 3 breaths of time, the bloody mark disappeared. Even though Hua Shui was not truly dead, he had given up on his fate as an ancient chaos god and only retained a tiny bit of it. It was not much different from the death of an ancient chaos god. The bloody mark's appearance signified the fall of an ancient chaos god. The sudden turn of events stunned many experts. Chong and the other experts looked in shock at the bloody mark that had suddenly appeared. An ancient chaos god had fallen. Prison Dao ancient god was still alive, so which ancient chaos god did? They looked at the chaos abyss. The fact the prison Dao ancient god had suppressed an ancient chaos god in his chaos abyss was not a secret. The one who died was the one who was suppressed. Did prison Dao ancient god kill him, or did Qin do it? Chong and the other ancient supreme experts knew what the bloody mark meant, but the rest of the experts were confused, and had no idea what had just happened. Chu looked at the bloody mark and fell into a state of deep thought. When he was traveling through the chaos, he had once seen a bloody mark appear. However, that bloody mark had not spread out very far through the chaos, unlike this bloody mark. Did the appearance of the bloody mark mean that an ancient chaos god had fallen? In the chaos, some existences raised their heads in shock. Who has fallen? How many years has it been since a bloody mark appeared? Why did it appear today? Which ancient chaos god has fallen? Many existences fell into deep thought. The chaos seemed to be brewing with change. It seemed that something big was about to happen. Ancient chaos gods were particularly sensitive to the changes in the chaos, and they all sensed the abnormality. Therefore, they kept a low profile and avoided appearing as much as possible. They cultivated in seclusion to increase their strength and to avoid any possible changes. They all knew that Prison Dao Ancient God had made an appearance, but no one cared. Even though Prison Dao Ancient God was somewhat weak, he had a powerful backer behind him. The celestial ancestor frowned and looked in the direction of the 9 zones. Could it be that the one who had fallen was Prison Dao Ancient God? If that was the case, then things would soon go out of control. The existence behind Prison Dao Ancient God could not be provoked, which was why the latter behaved so arrogantly. Miao has fallen, the immortal ancestor sighed. Miao, in the end, was unable to let go of his obsession, and had probably died at the hands of the human race. Qin, the immortal ancestor sighed again. Forget it, dust to dust, ashes to ashes. As for taking revenge on Qin, he did not have the mood to do so. Miao's death was destined the moment he chose to continue down his path of obsession. I'm afraid there's been a change in the chaos. If I don't reach the Chaos Supreme Realm, I won't be able to control my own fate. How difficult was it to reach the Chaos Supreme Realm? At the beginning of the chaos, how many of the ancient chaos gods had broken through to the Chaos Supreme Realm? Without achieving the Chaos Supreme Realm, one would not be able to truly control one's own fate, and would not be able to avoid being affected by the changes of the chaos. The Chaos Supreme Realm was like an insurmountable mountain that blocked countless experts. The immortal ancestor was extremely talented and was better than most ancient chaos gods, and he had also obtained many great opportunities. However, he was still stuck at this step, unable to advance. The immortal ancestor's eyes darkened as he looked toward a certain direction in the chaos. Are the celestial and demon ancestors the same? The 3 ancestors had obtained great fortune from the 9 zones back then, and had created the 3 major races and ruled over the 9 zones for a long time. However, even though they had transcended the world creator realm, and gone to the limits of that realm, they were still unable to break through to the Chaos Supreme Realm. To many people who had transcended the world creator realm, the Chaos Supreme Realm was just a legend. However, experts who had walked far enough along that path knew that the Chaos Supreme Realm existed. However, how could they break through to the Chaos Supreme Realm? There seemed to be no way. In the entire chaos, there were a few Chaos Supreme, but no one knew how they had broken through. Somewhere in the chaos, a terrifying figure appeared. He looked in the direction of the 9 zones. Mokai has fallen. The demon ancestor's eyes were calm, and he did not seem to be angry. Mokai was considered the weakest of his personal disciples. Furthermore, the only thing he was concerned about was breaking through to the Chaos Supreme Realm. If he could break through to the Chaos Supreme Realm, it did not matter if all his disciples died. Within a mysterious space within the chaos, another terrifying figure was seated in midair. His body was extremely huge, far larger than even the tallest mountain. This was his true form, and he had not used the power of his Tao path to enlarge his body. At a certain moment, as if he sensed something, he raised his head and looked at a certain place in the chaos. A bloody mark could be seen. "Which one of you has fallen?" he mumbled to himself. Then he continued to comprehend the supreme laws of the chaos, and his Tao path continuously tried to connect with the supreme laws of the chaos but was rejected time and time again. How can I break through to the chaos supreme realm? He felt that he was only one step away. However, this one step seemed impossible to take. He was clearly infinitely close to the chaos supreme realm, and could sense the supreme laws of the chaos, so why was he unable to break through? What was he missing? Am I lacking fate, or something else entirely? He had been stuck at this step for a long time. Since his Tao path could not connect with the supreme laws of the chaos, then, what about his divine soul, or even his body? His huge body began to turn illusory, slowly trying to connect with the supreme laws of the chaos. I founded the giant race, and my fate should be stronger than that of the immortals, celestials, and demons. I'm also an ancient chaos god, so how can I be lacking in terms of fate? Am I not approaching this the right way? The huge figure muttered to himself. This was the giant chaos god. The ancestor of the giant race. He was one of the top ancient chaos gods. Even so, he was still stuck at this step for countless years, unable to break through. The death of Shui also alarmed some of the other existences in the chaos. After his death, the fate and origin essence of Shui's true body were absorbed by Qin and fused into his body. At this moment, Qin felt that the transformation of his body seemed to have stopped temporarily. However, he still could not escape the heavenly Tao. Not enough, he had to kill prison Tao ancient god as well. At this moment, Qin's strength had reached its peak. The fate and origin essence of an ancient chaos god had merged into his body, and his aura and strength skyrocketed. He believed that if he killed another ancient chaos god, he would definitely be able to escape the heavenly Tao. In actuality, Chuzan had taken this opportunity to stop transforming Qin into a divine being of the heavenly Tao, giving him a little hope of breaking away from the heavenly Tao. Qin's clone had been hiding in the 9 zones for a long time and had fused with a huge amount of great Tao fate energy, which had later been transformed into heavenly Tao fate energy. He had also obtained a great opportunity from the heavenly Tao. How could it be easy to escape the heavenly Tao? If he had truly broken away from the heavenly Tao, Qin's strength would have stopped at this level, and would not be able to advance any further. His strength might even decline. He might not be clear about the benefits of becoming a divine being of the heavenly Tao, but he would understand them in the future. The fate energy of an ancient chaos god had merged with the heavenly Tao through Qin, causing the heavenly Tao laws to become even closer to the supreme laws of the chaos. If Qin killed a few more ancient chaos gods, would this process not accelerate? Chuzan immediately dispelled this thought. He could not just kill ancient chaos gods for no reason. Qin charged out of the chaos abyss toward prison Tao ancient god. Prison Tao ancient god did not seem very strong, but ancient chaos gods were extraordinary by nature. The chaos abyss reappeared around prison Tao ancient god's body, and he turned his entire body into a huge cage, trapping Qin in the middle. Prison Tao ancient god chose to defend and wear Qin down. If Qin could not break through the chaos abyss cage, he would be suppressed, just like Shui. The battle entered a stalemate. If Qin could break the cage, then prison Tao ancient god would definitely lose. However, if he did lose, it did not mean that he could be killed. Defeat did not mean death, especially for an ancient chaos god. He would escape. The battle on the other side was still extremely intense. The battle between Qian and Mo Yao had almost reached a crazy level. Mo Yao was suppressed, but then burst forth with power and fought back like crazy. It was impossible for two people of similar strength who had transcended the world creator realm to resolve a death match within a short period of time. Chuzan had been paying attention to the battle outside the world. With Chong here, even if the other disciples of the demon ancestor returned, they would not be able to interfere in the battle between Qian and Mo Yao. It was Qin versus prison Tao ancient god, and Qian versus Mo Yao. The rest of the people were simply waiting for the result of the two battles. Also, they were waiting for the 9 zones to stabilize so that they could enter and fight for the great opportunities that lay within. Chu looked at the 9 zones. At this moment, he did not think that the power of rejection would disappear. Rather, he was more concerned about how the great Tao had been replaced by the heavenly Tao. It was filled with mystery and the unknown. Soon, this matter would become known by all of the living beings in the chaos. Chuzan looked at the chaos. Would something happen if the heavenly Tao spread through the chaos? Would the three ancestors return? In fact, would Chaos Supreme experts appear? In the meantime, the 99-year milestone had arrived. There was only 1 year left until the 100-year milestone. Chu Zan was filled with anticipation. What kind of reward would he receive from the system then? As usual, the reward for the 99-year milestone was a Chaos Supreme technique. The battle outside the world was still ongoing. It was common for a battle between cultivators who had transcended the world creator realm to last for a few years, or even 100 years. There was not much of a difference in strength between them, so it was not something that could be decided in a short time. Qin's battle with Prison Tao Ancient God was as intense as ever. Break. The incomparably savage Qin brandished his halberd, constantly striking at the cage and getting closer and closer to Prison Tao Ancient God's true body. However, he did not immediately break through Prison Tao Ancient God's cage. Once it was broken, Prison Tao Ancient God would definitely flee. He was looking for an opportunity to heavily injure the other party to prevent him from escaping. The battle between Qian and Mo Yao was even more intense. Their Tao paths intertwined, crushing and tearing at each other. It was a crazy scene. In the heavenly domain, in Qin Ying's residence, Qin Qian appeared to be uneasy. It was as if there was something calling out to her from beyond the world. Frowning, she became restless and could not calm down to stabilize her cultivation. Chu Zan glanced at her. He sighed. She was already a different person and was no longer the Yun from before. However, Qian's appearance still made her uneasy and caused her to unconsciously feel a sense of concern. Back then, she had been so deeply in love. Qian had already gone crazy. Perhaps Yun's death was the last straw that broke his heart. Revenge was the only thing that drove him to continue cultivating and becoming stronger. Now that he had met Mo Yao again, even the final shreds of his tenuous sanity were unraveling. All that was left was the bone-deep obsession of killing Mo Yao. Qian's body was covered in wounds, and even his Tao path had cracks. He was extremely crazy and had already suppressed Mo Yao. Mo Yao looked crazy, but that was just his ruthless nature. He was not really crazy. Qian was really crazy. Mo Yao's eyes revealed a look of disbelief. His heart was already trembling with fear. Qian was too crazy, so crazy that he felt chills all over his body. I ate your parents, siblings, and relatives. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Mo Yao roared. So what if you're crazy? Today, I'll eat you too. The spectators were all silent. Mo Yao was actually afraid. People like Piao and Yao, who knew about the grudges between the two, had complicated expressions. Qian had actually gone crazy. However, his terrifying strength still remained, and was further enhanced by his crazy nature. He had surpassed them. Mo Yao roared repeatedly, but was constantly being suppressed. Qian's eyes were bloodshot, as if he had been stimulated by Mo Yao's words. He seemed to be getting crazier and crazier, and his frantic attacks reflected that. In comparison, Qin's battle with Prison Tao Ancient God caused much less of a stir. Mo Yao, you ate my family and friends. You made me lose Yun. You know what? I'm going to eat you too. Qian's voice was hoarse. He pounced on Mo Yao like a rabid dog, and used his Tao path to restrain the latter's Tao path, grabbing him tightly. Then, he bit Mo Yao's chest and tore off a piece of flesh. Get lost. Mo Yao roared and struggled, and his Tao path trembled. However, he was unable to break free. Qian's Tao path bound the two of them tightly. Qian took another bite, and then another. At this moment, Mo Yao was terrified. Roaring, Mo Yao continued to rain blows on Qian's body. However, Qian allowed him to do so. Even though cracks appeared on his body, he ignored them and continued biting chunks out of Mo Yao. Pieces of flesh disappeared one after another. Qian's aura also became more terrifying. FCK, you're crazy. You're the demon. You're the FC King demon. Let me go. Mo Yao roared in fear. He continued to attack Qian, but his Tao path and world had already been weakened, so his strength was greatly reduced. Qian's body was as powerful as a Chaos Supreme treasure, so even though there were many cracks, it did not collapse. On the contrary, Mo Yao was losing more and more of his body in bloodied chunks. Even if he focused on healing himself, he could not stop this from happening. The spectators felt a chill in their hearts as they looked at Qian, whose bones were visible, gnawing at Mo Yao. What kind of grudge did they have? Mo Yao could not break free and was suppressed. If no one came to his rescue, he would most likely die. For the sake of revenge, Qian had probably been thinking and planning about how to suppress him for a long time. How would he kill Mo Yao? His Dao path clearly had a certain suppressive effect on Mo Yao, and restricted both the latter's strength and movements. This was something that had clearly been prepared in advance. Mo Shui and Mo Shi's expressions changed. Mo Shui moved and was about to attack Qian. However, Chu stood in his way and said, "Mo Shui, if you want to attack, you'll have to get past me first." Mo Shui's face darkened. He was no match for Chu. Then, a figure emerged from the chaos. Violent power surged from that figure toward Qian. Chong, who had been sitting idle, raised his hand and slapped it, dispersing the violent power. He looked at the newcomer with a harsh gaze. "Mo Bao, why do you have to interfere?" Mo Bao was also a personal disciple of the demon ancestor, and was no weaker than Mo Yao. In fact, in terms of destructive power, he was stronger than Mo Yao. "Chong, do you really want to do this?" Mo Bao looked at Chong coldly. Mo Yao should pay for the sins he has committed. "Mo Bao, if you want to intervene, you can try and get past me." Chong's eyes were calm. "Or, you can call Mo Kuang over." Mo Bao's expression was extremely gloomy. There was also some fear in his eyes. "Chong was too powerful. Your giant race wants to meddle in a feud between the demon race and the human race. Chong, you have to think about it carefully. Your giant race won't get off unscathed." Chong's eyes turned cold. "This is a grudge between Qian and Mo Yao. As Qian's close friend, I will help him ward off those who would interfere. However, it doesn't involve my race." His voice suddenly turned serious. "That being said, if you want to drag the giant race into this, go ahead and do so. The giant race does not fear the demon race." With a huge body and a shocking aura, he looked straight at Mo Bao and said, "Even your master, the demon ancestor, wouldn't dare to do anything to the giant race, so who do you think you are? Do you really think that the demon race is invincible in the chaos?" As the direct descendant of Giant Chaos God, Chong had this much confidence. Giant Chaos God, who was infinitely close to the Chaos Supreme Realm, was so powerful that he surpassed the demon ancestor in terms of cultivation. Furthermore, even if the demon ancestor reached the same level, Giant Chaos God would still be stronger by merit of his body and status as an ancient Chaos God. Mo Bao's expression was extremely gloomy. He looked at Chu. "I won't interfere in the fight between Qian and Mo Yao, but you won't stop me from killing the other humans, will you?" Chong frowned. Was Mo Bao going to use the human race to threaten Qian to stop? Chu, however, was calm and composed. He looked at Mo Bao and said, "Mo Bao, do you think that I am easy to bully?" He opened his folding fan. His temperament was now refined, with the air of a gentleman. "You and Mo Shui can join forces." Boom. Both Mo Bao and Mo Shui attacked without hesitation. Ji's figure moved, and he was about to intercept Mo Shui, but Chu laughed, and a world appeared, enveloping the Mo Bao and Mo Shui within. Chong looked at Chu. His world was very special. It seemed to be transformed from a supreme treasure. Its defensive capabilities were extremely strong. It would not be a problem for him to restrain those two demons in there for the time being. Mo Bao and Mo Shui roared continuously as they attacked Chu's world, and Chu's body and world shook. However, he moved and arrived at the celestial race's camp. He ignored Ting's angry gaze. Instead, he looked at Goddess Shi and said with a smile, "Sister Shi, can you help me stabilize this world?" She looked at him and did not speak for a long time. Ting was anxious. "Sister, ignore him. Chu is AB****. He's seducing people left, right and center." "Shut up." She glared at him. Ting immediately shut up and looked aggrieved. "Sister Shi, please help me one more time. After this, I promise I'll be good," Chu said with a bitter face. The group of experts watching could not help but curse in their hearts. This B*************** Chu really did not care for his dignity. What was so good about him that even Goddess Shi would take a fancy to him? "All right," she said. Zai's heart softened. Chu's body was shaking, and cracks were appearing on it, as if he could not hold on any longer. She sighed. With a wave of her hand, a divine light shrouded the world, stabilizing it. Ting almost vomited blood when he saw this, but he could only hold it in. "She, you dare to interfere?" Mo Bao roared. She did not answer. Mo Bao and Mo Shui were now trapped in the world. Seeing this, Mo Shi immediately felt a sense of danger. Ji was clearly eyeing him. Mo Shi was shocked, and he hurriedly flew over to Yao's side. "Brother Yao, we demons, immortals and celestials are one. We can't let the human race strut around proudly like this." Then, he shamelessly stood behind Yao and watched the battle between Qian and Mo Yao from afar. "Qian, you can't kill me. Haha, eat my flesh all you want. You'll become a demon yourself." If you eat me, I'll possess you sooner or later. I'm immortal, so I fear nothing. Mo Yao laughed wildly. Even though his voice was trembling, it was still filled with malice. Qian gnawed at Mo Yao madly. Mo Yao, I'll make you relive my nightmares. You'll die in my stomach. In order to kill you, in order to devour you alive, I have been thinking about how to wear down your origin essence and your Tao path. FCK, even if I die, I won't become a demon. All your trump cards are useless. Qian's voice was hoarse, crazy, and ferocious. Mo Yao's voice trembled even more, and in the end, he let out a miserable scream. He was terrified. Qian would really swallow him alive. Mo Yao screamed and struggled madly, even calling for help. None of the spectating experts interfered. With Chong presiding over the situation, there was nothing they could do. Even Mo Bao could not interfere, let alone others. Unless the demon ancestor came personally, Mo Yao would definitely die. However, would the demon ancestor personally come? No one knew. That being said, since Chong dared to take charge, he was probably prepared for that possibility, right? In the heavenly domain, Qin Qian became more and more uneasy. She was unable to calm down and looked restless. She furrowed her brows and felt that her soul was in great discomfort. It seemed that someone extremely important to her was suffering. Uncontrollably, 2 lines of tears flowed down from her eyes. Qin Ying appeared beside her. What's wrong with you? I don't know, I just feel uneasy, it's as if. It seems. Qin Qian also did not know how to describe it. She did have an inkling of what it was about. However, she was Qin Qian, not someone else, so why was it still like this? Did that person really have such deep feelings for him? I'll take you to see Master, Qin Ying said. This little fox had such a hard life. She was already reborn, yet she still could not avoid the torture of love from her past life. In the small courtyard, I can help you completely remove the influence, as long as you're willing. Chu Zan looked at Qin Qian. Qin Qian opened her mouth and asked, why have I been like this recently? That person has appeared outside the world. He is taking revenge. Qin Qian struggled and hesitated. After a long while, she said, can I go and take a look? Qin Ying patted Qin Qian's head and sighed in his heart. She still could not let it go. He was also very curious as to who Qin Qian was deeply in love with in her previous life and what was so special about him to the point that she was affected even after being reborn. Sure, Chu Zan nodded. Qian was here with a death wish. After killing Mo Yao, he would have nothing to live for anymore. This was a man with a bitter and tragic life. He looked handsome and energetic, but he was filled with sorrow. Perhaps, being able to see Qin Qian before he died would be a form of relief. Just watch. Don't interfere in the battle, Chu Zan warned. Qin Qian nodded. If Qin Qian interfered and caused Qian to be distracted or even become disoriented, he would probably be killed by Mo Yao. With a wave of his hand, he sent Qin Qian and Qin Ying to the edge of the heavenly Tao, and concealed their figures so that outsiders would not be able to sense or see them. Qin Ying looked out into the chaos, and was shocked. These experts were too strong, and could easily kill him with a single finger. The battles caused Qin Ying's scalp to go numb. How was that a battle? That person was clearly eating that other person. It was insanity. When he turned around, he saw Qin Qian looking at the person in a daze. Qin Ying fell silent. That person had actually gone crazy. He could tell. However, what kind of hatred could make a person become like that? Furthermore, underneath the insanity, he could sense sorrow, as if that person's very divine soul was in pain. That person's life had been filled with endless tribulations and tragic events. He was taking revenge. He was really going to devour his enemy alive. Qin Ying looked at the unknown human expert silently. In the history of the human race, there had been far too many hardships. This human expert had lived through those years of suffering. Mo Yao roared, screamed, cursed, and finally begged for mercy. The spectators all watched silently. Perhaps this was Mo Yao's retribution. His aura was getting weaker and weaker. Even those who had transcended the world creator realm could die. Dispersing one's Tao path and world could, of course, help one to avoid ordinary dangers. However, he could not even do that. Death was inevitable unless he could break free from the restraints of Qian's Tao path. Mo Yao, who loved to eat and devour living beings, was being eaten alive. This was karma. Mo Yao's voice gradually became softer. His aura was getting weaker and weaker as his Tao path and world crumbled bit by bit. However, Mo Yao would not die for some time, as the torture of being eaten alive would last for some time longer. His screams were filled with fear. His will was on the verge of collapsing. Qian was as crazy as ever, and his aura was filled with malice. This was the after effect of devouring Mo Yao. However, it was his intention to torture and destroy Mo Yao's will. Mo Yao, this is your retribution. Do you feel regret now? I won't let you die so easily. You're going to watch yourself being eaten alive bit by bit. Qian's hoarse voice had a hint of satisfaction. FCK, you're crazy. You're crazy. Kill me. Mo Yao roared. I won't resist anymore. Stop biting. Lunatic, UFC King Lunatic. Qian laughed. So there was a day that even you would beg for mercy. Ha ha ha. His laughter gave people an inexplicable chill. Back then, I knelt down and begged you. I kowtowed until my head was bleeding profusely. But did you let my family and friends go? Mo Yao, you should savor this experience. Ha ha. Mo Yao's will was about to collapse. Chong, tell him to kill me. Stop this lunatic. Chong, it's all because of you. If not for you, I would have never ended up in this state. Mo Yao cursed Chong madly. Chong's expression was calm and he did not say a word. He only looked at Qian with a gaze filled with helplessness. In the heavenly Tao, Qin Qian watched silently. She did not know why, but her tears could not stop flowing. She clearly did not feel that sad. He was a stranger. However, there was an inexplicable emotion in her soul that she could not get rid of. For some reason, she wanted to touch that person's face. Qin Qian took a few deep breaths and tried to calm herself down. She tried her best to get rid of this inexplicable influence. She forced herself to be a spectator instead of experiencing it herself. In Chu's world, Mo Bao and Mo Shui had stopped attacking the world. They knew that they could not change Mo Yao's fate. Only their master could. However, they knew that their master would not show himself. The screams in the chaos were getting softer and weaker. Mo Yao's will was about to collapse. It had been an entire month of torture and being eaten alive. He could not die. He could not even kill himself. In the end, he had tried multiple times to beg for mercy and the release of death, but Qian remained unmoved. The spectators were all silent. Some of them could not even watch anymore. The more he looked, the more frightened and creepy it felt. Mo Yao was an extremely brutal and notorious existence, yet he was actually tortured to the point of crying and begging for mercy. Back then, did he ever imagine that this would be his outcome? Qian's Tao path and its power were tailored specifically to deal with Mo Yao, which is why he felt such pain and torture. As Mo Yao's aura weakened, the cries for mercy also weakened. Everyone discovered that Qian's body was filled with an evil aura and was constantly cracking. It seemed that he was not prepared to continue living after this. The experts who knew about Qian's past all had complicated expressions on their faces. To Qian, revenge was the meaning of his existence. Once Mo Yao died, there would be no reason for him to exist. Perhaps death was a form of release for him. Piao's expression was complicated. Scenes from the past appeared in her mind. Piao was a human genius blessed by the great Tao. She was accepted as a personal disciple by the immortal ancestor and became a high and mighty immortal. These heights were not something that Qian, who was from her generation, could reach or achieve. She had once advised Qian to join the immortal race. Given his talent, he would definitely be accepted and nurtured by the immortal race. However, Qian refused. He said that he would lead the human race to rise up. He would make the human race the most powerful race in the world. After that, they became strangers to each other. Qian attempted to imitate the monster races in an attempt to find a path for the human race to become stronger. Then Mo Yao descended. When she heard that Mo Yao was targeting the human race, she was furious and arrogant. She wanted Qian to suffer a loss and realize how weak he was. She wanted him to recognize the weakness of the human race, and that only by joining the immortal race could one become strong and gain the ability to take care of the human race. Therefore, she did not interfere with Mo Yao immediately. However, she had never expected that tragedy to happen. After that tragedy, Qian begged Chong to teach him the giant race's body tempering technique, and the latter acquiesced. However, the giant race's body tempering technique wasn't suitable for all humans. Only a small number of people with strong physical constitutions could cultivate it. Qian combined the body tempering technique of the giant race with his own comprehension and created a body tempering technique that could be cultivated by humans. From then on, the human race gained the ability to fend for themselves, to some extent. They could hunt down some members of the weaker races, but were still considered weak themselves. Qin had created the cultivation method of the human race. It was the real cultivation method of the human race and not a modified one like Qian's. However, in all honesty, Qian was the one who laid the foundation for this to happen. Piao recalled the past. The only relatively happy experience Qian had was probably during his time with Yun. However, because of Yun, Miao and the immortal race also started to suppress the human race, and everything started to change. Qian's life was too bitter. For the sake of the human race, he had given up too much. In the end, Yun died as well. Piao knew that Qian did not want Yun to be dragged into this, so he ruthlessly chased her out. That day, when Piao saw Yun, she was silently crying alone. In order to fulfill his wish and to return to his side, Yun had constantly tried to help the human race become stronger. She had done many things in secret. She even begged Miao not to target the human race. However, in the end, she died. Because she could not return to Qian's side, she fell and murmured that she wished to become a human in her next life. The day Qian received news of Yun's death, he sat on a mountain peak alone for 3 years. After that, he roared madly and charged toward the demon race's territory. It was Chong who saved him that time. Piao silently asked herself, did she do anything wrong back then? Was she too cruel? She did not know why, but when she saw Qian in love with Yun, her heart was filled with envy. As she recalled, Piao suddenly had the urge to cry. She looked at the crazed Qian. Perhaps this is a form of release for you. It's the best ending for you, she muttered. Did the human race still remember him? Did they know the suffering you experienced for the human race? A long time had passed, and his achievements had been erased by time, yet his hatred had remained unchanged, as well as his love and obsession toward Yun. Piao suddenly felt a sense of indescribable sadness. Perhaps she would never see this person again in the future. Time passed as Mo Yao howled miserably. Everyone was watching the battle between Qian and Mo Yao, if it could even be called that. On the contrary, not many people paid attention to the battle between Qin and Prison Dao Ancient God. Chu Zan also sighed. The outcome of the battle between Qian and Mo Yao had been decided. In truth, the outcome between Qin and Prison Dao Ancient God had also been decided. It seemed like they were still in a stalemate and entangled, but Chu Zan could already tell that Qin had won. Prison Dao Ancient God was about to die. Qin was merely looking for a decisive opportunity to land the killing blow. He was only biding his time to wait for the best opportunity. He could not allow Prison Dao Ancient God to escape. Honestly, even if the demon ancestor appeared, Chu Zan would block him and prevent him from disrupting the battle. From Qian's madness and sorrow, he could tell how difficult it was for the human race back then. It was time for the demons to receive their retribution. Chu Zan looked on silently. The heavenly Tao was also continuously stabilizing, and the 3 realms of the divine world were almost complete. Once the 3 realms were completed, the name of the heavenly Tao would be known by all of the living beings in the chaos. The 9 zones would also disappear from the annals of history and be replaced by the divine world. At that time, the situation within the chaos would shift, and this change would affect the entire chaos. Furthermore, Chu Zan would continue to connect the supreme laws of the chaos with the heavenly Tao. The 100-year milestone was fast approaching, so Chu Zan was filled with anticipation. What would he receive as a reward from the system? The cultivation method to transcend the chaos. After he broke through to the Chaos Supreme Realm, the speed of cultivation had slowed down. The embryonic supreme laws within his body were still growing, but it was not something that Chu Zan could affect consciously, and was merely a byproduct of his special constitution. He was currently in a state where he only improved passively. Therefore, he was hoping that the 100-year milestone reward would fill this gap. Boom! In the chaos, Mo Yao's body completely disappeared. Mo Yao did not recover, and his Tao path and world began to dissipate into the chaos. However, Qian devoured them frantically, slowly shattering them into even smaller pieces and absorbing them until nothing was left. Within the shattered Tao path, Mo Yao's screams and curses could still be heard. Qian wanted to devour everything and completely remove any chances of Mo Yao reviving. The latter's voice echoed in the chaos, cursing, screaming, and begging for mercy. Finally, he laughed wildly. Ha ha ha, eat up, eat your fill, your parents and relatives are all there. They're all in my Tao path. They're delicious, right? You're eating them all now. Ha ha ha, I don't regret it. I ate them all in front of you, and I had a great time. You don't know, do you? Actually, I forced Yun to her death. I tricked her into taking the fate of the heavenly fox race and merging it with the fate of the human race, saying that it would help the human race and you. I even lied to her and said that she could reincarnate into a human and be with you. Ha ha ha, she believed it. She actually believed it. In the end, she suffered a cultivation backlash and died. Ha ha ha, I killed all of the loved ones in your life. Yun sacrificed so much for you. I lied to her, and she stole the fate of the heavenly fox race. I even took a part of it. I lied to her even more after that. When you cut off all ties with her, I said that you lied to her and used her. She believed it. Yun was extremely sad before she died. She threw away all her memories and even wanted to get rid of her life imprint and origin essence. I was the one who schemed for Meow to meet Yun. I set up the trap. Haha, it's all because of me. Qian, let me tell you a secret. I'm not just a demon. I'm also a descendant of the human race. You didn't expect Pan to be my incarnation, did you? Qian's eyes were bloodshot, and he was panting like a bull. 652 Kiana's Madness Part 4. Qian roared crazily, Ida su. Pan. He was an outstanding human expert, and Yuna's tragedy was definitely related to him. He had once sneakily killed many talented human geniuses, and committed unforgivable crimes. Qian had personally killed him back then. Mo Yao. Qian roared in anger. If Pan was Mo Yao's incarnation, then everything that had happened in the past was Mo Yao's doing. Piao was also stunned. Pan was actually Mo Yao's incarnation. That meant that the first batch of humans who had become demons was most likely due to Mo Yao's schemes. Qian roared and instantly crushed Mo Yao's remaining Dao Path and world, which were about to collapse, into a small bead. Kiana's body was constantly cracking, and his divine soul appeared. He started to refine his own blood essence and divine soul to activate a secret technique, fusing them with his Dao Path. Mo Yao, I want you to never be able to recover, and never be completely annihilated. I want you to suffer the pain and torture of this very moment forever. Kiana's voice resounded through the chaos. Even when the chaos is destroyed, you will still suffer this torture. Boom. The secret technique engraved a rune on the bead that contained Mo Yao's Dao Path, world and trace of will. Qian was sacrificing himself to torture Mo Yao for all eternity. You are crazy. Mo Yao screamed. He regretted it in his heart. He should not have provoked Qian like that. He would suffer the torture of this moment for all eternity, and would never be free or dead. The more Mo Yao thought about it, the more frightened he became. That's true. Have already gone crazy. Qian laughed like a maniac as tears of blood flowed from his eyes. His aura began to dissipate, and his divine soul started to turn illusory. The crowd of spectators remained solemnly silent. Boom. The rune was completely engraved on the bead. At that moment, a supreme law of the chaos appeared, seemingly acknowledging Kiana's sacrifice. All of the spectators were shocked. The legendary supreme law of the chaos had appeared. Was it here to bear witness to Kiana's curse? In this way, unless this law was broken, Mo Yao would never be free. Qian laughed. His physical body was crumbling, and his divine soul was becoming fainter and fainter. He looked at Mo Yao's illusory face within the bead. Mo Yao, I am free. But you will be punished and tortured forever. Roar. Mo Yao roared, his face twisted and his eyes filled with fear. He was really afraid. Qian, please spare me. Kill me and I'll tell you a secret. Yun might not be dead yet, she just changed her identity. Ida's the truth, I promise you. She might have recovered. Meow left something behind in an attempt to guide Yun to recover her memories. However, he tampered with Yuna's memories and replaced you with him. Really, if you kill me, I'll tell you where Meow's secret was hidden, Mo Yao begged. Mo Yao, I won't believe you. However, even if Yun is still alive, in the end, Ida's better for her to follow anyone but me. I will only bring her suffering and sadness. Qian laughed and cried as if he was reminiscing about the past. His divine soul was fading away. As she sobbed, Mei walked forward and could not help but reach out to touch his face. You only have Yun in your heart. Qian looked at her and wanted to avoid her hand, but he could not. Mei, don't be so stubborn. You advised me not to be stubborn. You kept persuading me not to be stubborn. Mei was crying very sadly. You know that even without my sister, you still have me. Why can't you just treat me as her? A you are you, and she is her. Qian reached out his hand and stroked Mei's beautiful hair. His voice became gentle. Alive well and happily. His hand began to shatter. Then, Qian looked back at the 9 zones. Suddenly, he was shocked. He saw a beautiful figure. A power that came out of nowhere suddenly rushed toward the 9 zones. Mei was stunned and looked at the 9 zones. There was a beautiful figure standing there. Shock coursed through her mind. Was that her sister? Piao was also stunned. Yun was not dead. Furthermore, she was in the 9 zones. Everyone was stunned. Chong was the same. Mo Shui and Mo Bao had already been released from Chua's world. Mo Yao was cursed and would never be able to escape, so Chu released them. Even the demon ancestor would not be able to save Mo Yao now. Only someone who could shatter the imprint of the supreme law of the chaos could. Qian instantly rushed to Qin Qiuna's side. His body and divine soul continued to crumble, but he ignored the pain. Yun. Qin Qian looked at him and was silent for a while before she said, my name is not Yun. I am Qin Qian, a human. All of the experts in the chaos were stunned. Qin Qian, a human. Did Yun really reincarnate into a human? Ha, Qin Qian. Qin Qian it is then. Qian burst into laughter. It's good to forget the past. You should have forgotten it. Yun has already disappeared. His divine soul and physical body suddenly collapsed, and a ray of light appeared in front of Qin Qian. This is my comprehension of the great Tao that I have built up during my whole life. You have done so much for me, so today, I'll do something for you. Qiana's final words slowly faded away. At the same time, he used the last vestiges of his power to hurl the bead into the 9 zones. Qin Qian accepted the ray of light in her hand, but tears flowed out inexplicably. She also felt a sense of relief in her heart. Qian was dead. All of the experts were silent. He sacrificed himself just so that Mo Yao would be tortured eternally. Soon, Qian would completely disappear. There would be no trace of him in the river of time. He would all be erased by the supreme laws of the chaos. Chu Zan raised his hand and the bead containing Mo Yao's remnant fell into his hand. Looking at the demon that was roaring and screaming in the bead, he shook his head and threw the demon bead into the new world. A scepter appeared in his hand. The scepter of the Order of Chaos. His supreme power gushed into the scepter, and with a slight wave, he changed Qian's fate. Qian was not erased by the supreme laws of the chaos. His traces still existed in the river of time and history. Since he was an ancestor of the human race, Chu Zan felt that he should not disappear like this. Whether it was because he himself was a human, or because he pitied Qian's tragic life, Chu Zan followed his heart and took action. He raised his hand and made a grabbing motion, and Qian's life imprint appeared in his hand. Then, he raised his hand and threw the life imprint into the new world. Qian would be reborn among the human race of the new world, and he would lead the rise of the human race there. Wu, this is the life imprint of a human race ancestor, Qian. He will be reborn here. After he is born, give him the demon bead. Chu Zan's voice resounded in Wu's mind. When Mo Yao saw Qian reborn, he would probably suffer even more, right? Yes, big brother, Wu replied after a long while. Big brother, why did ancestor Qian? He asked after a pause. Clearly, Wu had heard about Qian. He sacrificed himself to kill Mo Yao. In light of the pain and sorrow he suffered in his life, I took a little of his life imprint to give him a new life, Chu Zan replied. Many thanks, big brother, Wu said respectfully. Qian's life imprint did not go through reincarnation. Chu Zan had made an exception. He would remain as Qian, and would not be reborn as another person. Only his body would be reborn. In the chaos, Mei charged toward Qin Qian. Sister. I'm not your sister. My name is Qin Qian. After Qin Qian finished speaking, she turned around and returned to the 9 zones. Mei wanted to chase after her, but she was rejected by the heavenly Tao. She could only watch as Qin Qian's figure disappeared. Many experts in the chaos wore grave expressions. What had happened in the 9 zones? The reborn Yun was actually in the 9 zones. After a long while, the experts outside the 9 zones were stunned when they realized. Why could they still remember Qian's existence? Qian had sacrificed himself and triggered the descent of the supreme laws of the chaos. By right, all traces of him should have been erased from the river of time, which meant that the memories of all living beings about him should have disappeared. Those who had transcended the world creator realm were powerful, but they still could not resist the supreme laws of the chaos, and would still have their memories erased. Could it be that those rumors were wrong, and those who had transcended the world creator realm would not have their memories erased? Could it be that only those who were weaker had their memories erased? Chong looked at Tai. Tai, do you remember Qian? Tai's expression darkened. Chang probably felt that he was a weakling, which was why he had asked Tai this question. It seemed that everyone thought that he was useless. Had it not been for his bad luck back then, he would have long transcended the world creator realm. I remember him, he replied sullenly. The other experts all began asking around as well, and it seemed that everyone remembered Qian. What was going on? Chu sighed. I think it's because of the supreme laws of the chaos. Perhaps they took pity on ancestor Qian's misfortune and tragic past. The ancestor of the human race will be remembered forever. Time cannot erase the traces of his existence. The group of experts looked at Chu and fell into a state of deep thought. No one here truly understood the supreme laws of the chaos, so it was difficult to say what was correct or wrong. Could the supreme laws also favor the human race like the great Tao? Then, Long Hai asked, Ancestor, shouldn't someone who sacrificed himself using the supreme laws be erased by time? Are the rumors wrong? Although it was a rumor, it was actually a piece of information that had been passed down from the earliest chaotic beings, so it should have been true. Huang Long raised his claws and patted Long Hai's head. Recently, he liked to pat the heads of the younger dragons, as it made him feel like a proper ancestor. Long Hai had a helpless look on his face, and had no choice but to allow Huang Long to do as he wished. He wondered why this ancestor of his was so strange. Those rumors are naturally true, Huang Long said. The moment he said that, the experts from the various races turned to look at Huang Long, this mysterious dragon ancestor. Ancestor, if the rumors are true, why can we all still remember Qian? Long Hai asked in confusion. That's because a Chaos Supreme Realm existence made a move and changed Qian's fate, Huang Long said meaningfully. Everyone's hearts trembled when they heard that, especially Yao, Piao, and the others. A Chaos Supreme Realm existence had actually preserved the traces of Qian's existence. The same Chaos Supreme Realm that only existed in the legends. Other than this level of existence, who else had the ability to interfere with the supreme laws of the chaos? Could it be that there was a Chaos Supreme Realm existence that pitied the human race? Mo Bao and the other experts who had targeted the human race all felt a chill run down their spines. Even the three ancestors were as insignificant as ants in front of such an existence. If the human race was truly pitied by such an existence, and thus protected, who would dare to target the human race? Ancestor, is that Chaos Supreme Realm existence going to protect the human race? Long Hai could not help but ask. At the same time, everyone looked at Huang Long curiously. Since this dragon ancestor knew that a Chaos Supreme Realm existence had made a move, was he also a Chaos Supreme Realm existence? Otherwise, how could he have known? Thinking this, Long Hai was extremely excited. Huang Long smiled mysteriously, and did not answer the question. Fellow Taoist Chu is a human, so wasn't it normal for him to protect the human race? Senior Huang Long, are you the legendary? Chu also could not restrain himself from asking. Huang Long waved his claws. Almost, but no. However, I am a close friend of that person. This was no small matter. The Chaos Supreme Realm truly existed. Furthermore, this dragon ancestor was a close friend of his. Even the three ancestors, and many of the stronger ancient chaos gods, were inferior. Senior Huang Long had even said that he was just a little short of reaching that legendary realm. This was testament to how terrifyingly strong he was. Chang was deep in thought. His own ancestor was also on the verge of breaking through to the Chaos Supreme Realm. However, he was unable to overcome this last step. Was Huang Long on the same level as his ancestor? Suddenly, boom, the chaos trembled, and the screams of Prison Tao Ancient God resounded through the chaos. Qin, you dare to kill me? All of the experts were stunned and quickly looked toward the source of the voice. The chaos abyss had already collapsed, and cracks had appeared on the massive body of Prison Tao Ancient God. A large halberd was pierced into his heart, which suppressed his Tao path and was constantly shattering it. Qin had actually obtained the final victory and killed Prison Tao Ancient God. This was unbelievable. In battles of this level, it should have been almost impossible to kill Prison Tao Ancient God without the latter escaping. However, Qin had accomplished this. It was too sudden. Originally, the two sides had been in a deadlock, and it looked difficult to determine a winner. However, the whole situation had changed in a flash. It seemed like Qin was truly capable of killing Prison Tao Ancient God, but was waiting for a chance to land a decisive blow. So what if I kill you? Can't I kill an ancient chaos god? Qin Leng said arrogantly. Prison Tao Ancient God's eyes went wide as his Tao path collapsed. His body also shattered as Qin absorbed his fate as an ancient chaos god. My brother is a Chaos Supreme Realm expert. Since you dared to kill me, not only will you die, but your entire human race will be exterminated. Prison Dao Ancient God roared. The hearts of all the experts present trembled. Chaos Supreme Realm expert, when they thought back to how tyrannical and arrogant Prison Dao Ancient God had been, and how many powerful existences refused to deal with him. Could it really be that he had the backing of a Chaos Supreme Realm expert? Qin also felt a chill run down his spine. However, he had to finish the job, so there was no room for regret. You're just a useless ancient chaos god. Who are you trying to scare? Qin snorted coldly. Die. The grudge between you and me shall be settled right now. Qin's halberd erupted with terrifying power. Boom. A bloody mark flashed through the chaos, signifying the death of an ancient chaos god. Within a short period of time, 2 ancient chaos gods had fallen. At this moment, Qin's aura was boundless and majestic. His halberd swept across the sky, and the golden light around his body was dazzling. Mo Bao and the others felt their hearts skip a beat as they felt a strong sense of danger. Qin frowned. He had already killed Prison Dao Ancient God and obtained the latter's fate. Why was he still unable to break away from the heavenly Dao? It even seemed like he was about to undergo some kind of transformation. He stood in place, constantly thinking about how he could break away from the heavenly Dao. With the death of Prison Dao Ancient God, part of the fate energy was once again siphoned into the heavenly Dao, strengthening it. The structure of the 3 realms was officially completed, and was now being perfected and fine-tuned. Chu Zan was not bothered by the fact that Prison Dao Ancient God had a brother who was a Chaos Supreme expert. After all, once the heavenly Dao became known throughout the chaos, and the divine world replaced the 9 zones, these Chaos Supreme experts would show up anyway. They would likely also try to seize the heavenly Dao. This was inevitable, as it would appear to be an opportunity to transcend the chaos. Chu Zan had already made the necessary preparations to deal with such a situation. Once the bloody mark appeared again, the existences hidden in the chaos opened their eyes once more. Another ancient chaos god had fallen. What exactly happened? Why did another ancient chaos god die? The immortal ancestor looked in the direction of the 9 zones. He had a vague premonition that the one who had died this time was Prison Dao Ancient God. He inwardly sighed in relief because the death of Prison Dao Ancient God had nothing to do with the immortal race. That being said, who killed Prison Dao Ancient God? All of the experts capable of killing Prison Dao Ancient God knew about his brother. Those who did not should not have possessed the strength to kill him. What an eventful period. There was probably going to be a great change in the 9 zones. Would Prison Dao Ancient God's brother make a move? The immortal ancestor was very curious, and was also filled with anticipation. Perhaps he would be able to glimpse the power of that legendary realm. The giant Chaos God echoed his thoughts, as did the other experts who were on the verge of reaching the Chaos Supreme Realm. If they managed to comprehend something from that, they might be able to break through to the Chaos Supreme Realm themselves. In a certain space where the supreme laws of the chaos existed. This was the highest layer of the chaos. Even those who had transcended the world creator realm could not sense or probe the layer, much less reach it. The highest layer of the chaos was constantly rising and expanding. It was the boundary of the chaos. As chaos was constantly expanding, this boundary constantly shifted. Here, one could gain insight into the supreme laws of the chaos up close. It was just like the heavenly domain, which was the closest to the great Tao, in the 9 zones. If one could break through the chaos and leave this layer, one would have transcended the chaos. However, it was almost impossible to transcend the chaos. In the highest layer of the chaos, there was a hazy space filled with the supreme laws of the chaos. There were no mountains, no oceans, and naturally no land. This was a special space. The foundation of this space was formed by the supreme laws of the chaos. There was a terrifying figure sitting here, surrounded by supreme power. On his bald head, there were 9 eyes on each side. Each eye was different. Some were wide open, some were squinted, and the corners of some eyes were slightly raised. They all had different forms. Their gazes were also different. They were angry, happy, or worried. The color of each eye was different. Red, green, orange, yellow, and so on. His face was dignified and upright, the eyes on his face were filled with might. His body was as tall and sturdy as a mountain, and he had 6 arms. At this moment, the 18 eyes on the head suddenly dazzled with light, looking down at a certain place within the chaos. A destructive power surrounded him. Prison Tao is dead. Who dared to kill him? He is weak, but since everyone knows of our relationship, who would dare to kill him? A newly ascended cultivator who transcended the world creator realm. Only those people would be unaware of Prison Tao Ancient God's backer. In that case, Prison Tao Ancient God was probably overconfident, and got himself killed. Fine, I'll take revenge for him. In that special space, the terrifying expert raised a hand. A supreme law of the chaos emerged, manifesting a destructive supreme power within that expert's hand. He casually pointed it downward, and then the destructive supreme power was unleashed, crossing a seemingly endless distance almost instantly while locking onto the karmic link involved with Prison Tao Ancient God's death. There was no need to look and he did not need to show himself. This power was sufficient to kill the murderer. No matter what, the murderer could not escape. In the chaos, there were no supreme treasures that could allow one to escape from the power of the supreme laws of the chaos, other than treasures refined by a Chaos Supreme Realm expert, or if the Chaos Supreme Realm expert took action personally. Qin was trying to resist the pull of the heavenly Tao, but the transformation did not stop. No matter how hard he tried or what he did, nothing worked. Despite killing 2 ancient chaos gods and seizing their fates, he had still failed to escape the heavenly Tao. Furthermore, the transformation process seemed to have been accelerated instead. Something was wrong. It was as if someone was secretly controlling it. The more Qin thought about it, the more shocked he was. However, he could no longer suppress the transformation. He felt that his divine soul and fate had completely changed. It was as if he had become connected to the heavenly Tao and its fate. He was about to become a divine being of the heavenly Tao. Qin's expression was complicated, as information flooded his mind. Becoming a divine being of the heavenly Tao seemed to be a good thing. The stronger the heavenly Tao was, the stronger he would be. Moreover, as long as the heavenly Tao existed, he would exist. Even if he died in battle, he would be resurrected within the heavenly Tao. The only restraint was probably the responsibility to manage the order of heavenly Tao. The treasures and harvests from killing outsiders would all be returned to the heavenly Tao. It meant that everything he had gained, whether it was the fates of the 2 ancient chaos gods, or any supreme treasures, would belong to the heavenly Tao and would be used to strengthen it. Still, that in turn would strengthen his own strength, so it was a win-win situation. Qin had a helpless expression. He had planned for a long time in order to control the great Tao of the 9 zones and the 9 zones themselves. With this, he had hoped to obtain the remaining fate energy of the 9 zones and perhaps obtain the chance to ascend to the legendary Chaos Supreme Realm. In the end, he failed. The great Tao of the 9 zones had disappeared, and in its place was the heavenly Tao. Still, it did not seem to be a complete failure. After becoming a divine being of the heavenly Tao, it seemed that he would become stronger, and there was even hope of him reaching the Chaos Supreme Realm. To a certain extent, he had been kidnapped by the heavenly Tao. Qin sighed. Then, suddenly, a terrifying sense of crisis descended. It was as if a power that wanted to destroy everything had descended. Chang and the other experts froze and did not dare to move. Qin was also unable to move. It was terrifying. A Chaos Supreme Realm existence had made a move, and obviously wanted to destroy Qin. The rumors were true. Prison Tao Ancient God did have a backer who was a Chaos Supreme Realm expert. Chu and Sha's expressions changed drastically. How could the human race survive the attack of such an existence? Was he only going to kill Qin, or exterminate the entire human race? Apart from a small region of chaos outside the 9 zones, the experts in the rest of the chaos were unable to detect that a Chaos Supreme Realm existence had made a move. This included the giant Chaos God and the other experts who were on the verge of reaching the Chaos Supreme Realm. Chu Zan raised his head and looked into the chaos. He saw the destructive supreme power descending from above. Prison Tao Ancient God's arrogance made sense now. Despite his lacking strength, no one had dared to kill him because of this Chaos Supreme Realm expert's backing. If Qin knew this, then he probably would not have killed Prison Tao Ancient God. After all, the expert might not truly care about Prison Tao Ancient God, but the act of killing him was still an affront to the might and status of a Chaos Supreme Realm expert. Therefore, he had to act and take revenge, showing everyone that such actions had devastating consequences. Chu Zan raised his hand and pointed. The heavenly Tao churned as its fate energy began to circulate violently. He would use his supreme power to protect Qin's divine soul from being destroyed, while helping him to complete the transformation into a divine being of the heavenly Tao. After becoming a divine being of the heavenly Tao, Qin's karma would be severed. Furthermore, with Chu Zan's protection, the other party would not be able to detect that Qin was still alive, unless he showed up personally to check, which would not happen. There was no reason to. After all, no one below the Chaos Supreme Realm could resist the power of the supreme laws of the Chaos. Chu Zan did not choose to meet force with force. There was no need for that. The other party had no enmity with him. The reason why he had acted to protect Qin was not only because he was the one who had instigated him to kill Prison Dao Ancient God, but also because Qin possessed a large amount of the Heavenly Dao's fate energy. His death would in turn damage the Heavenly Dao and hinder its development. It would take the Heavenly Dao a long time to recover from that damage. Therefore, his death was not an option that Chu Zan would entertain. Boom! Qin's body was instantly destroyed. He had no power to resist. Even his divine soul seemed to be on the verge of melting. At this moment, a mighty and supreme power brushed past his divine soul, transforming him completely into a divine being of the Heavenly Dao. His divine soul was recovering in the Heavenly Dao, and his physical body soon reappeared. His previous body was different from his current one, which had been condensed by the Heavenly Dao. After annihilating Qin, the destructive supreme power disappeared. Chu Zan had saved Qin without the other party even realizing he had interfered. There was no danger. Chu Zan was at ease. Actually, based on that attack, Chu Zan could tell that he was stronger than the other party, even though he had just broken through to the Chaos Supreme Realm recently. This was likely due to the 3,000 chaos bodies of creation and his cultivation foundation that had been solidified by the system. So what if he had just broken through? He was no weaker than any of those ancient Chaos Supreme Realm experts. Within the special space, the imposing figure retracted his hand. He frowned slightly. He felt that he had encountered something this time. However, he did not dwell on the matter. His target would only survive if another Chaos Supreme Realm expert took action. If this had happened, he would have been able to sense it. Not a single person in the entire special space intervened. Perhaps the other party had some kind of supreme treasure, which caused the power to encounter something. However, it was unable to stop it and was still annihilated. Outside the 9 zones, the terrified experts finally regained their ability to move once the destructive supreme power disappeared. The place where Qin had been standing was empty. All of the experts were silent. It was too terrifying. Even those who had transcended the world creator realm were like ants in front of such an existence. The incomparably powerful Qin that had killed Prison Dao Ancient God had actually died just like that. Not even a trace of his ashes was left. Chu heaved a sigh of relief. That Chaos Supreme expert had only killed Qin and did not implicate the entire human race. This was a great fortune amidst the disaster. He also felt sad. Ancestor Qin, a legendary person, had actually died just like that. Chu Zan saved Qin, and Qin completely transformed into a divine being of the Heavenly Dao. Furthermore, given Qin's personality, he would definitely wander the chaos and think of ways to strengthen the Heavenly Dao in order to become stronger himself. Chu Zan even gave him a little teaser. The Heavenly Dao had the potential to become a supreme law of the chaos. This also meant that once the Heavenly Dao became a supreme law of the chaos, as a divine being of the Heavenly Dao, Qin would also become a Chaos Supreme Realm expert. This further ignited Qin's fighting spirit. In order to become a Chaos Supreme Realm expert, he had to think of ways to strengthen the Heavenly Dao. In fact, he even tried to comprehend the supreme laws of the chaos while inside the Heavenly Dao and guide the supreme laws to descend. You remained in seclusion and secretly saved someone from the hands of a Chaos Supreme Realm expert. You have been rewarded with 10,000 years worth of cultivation. He had triggered the system reward. Chu Zan was overjoyed. This was an unexpected gain, and would increase his strength by a large margin. Chu Zan received his reward. The embryonic supreme laws within the 3,000 masses of the chaotic energy of creation instantly grew by a large amount. His strength had more than doubled. Chu Zan sighed. Without a cultivation method to transcend the chaos, it was too slow to improve his strength passively like this. This reward proved it. His strength would only double after 10,000 years of cultivation. As someone who had cultivated for less than 100 years, this was painstakingly slow. As expected, after breaking through to the Chaos Supreme Realm, the increase in his strength had slowed down. Transcending the chaos was like a huge immovable mountain. Even if he had a special constitution that allowed him to transcend the chaos, it was still too difficult to do so, and would take many thousands of years of accumulation. Therefore, the 100-year milestone reward was crucial. With a cultivation method to transcend the chaos, his cultivation speed would increase rapidly once more. Of course, even without a cultivation method to transcend the chaos, Chu Zan far surpassed the other Chaos Supreme Realm experts, who were still searching for the path to transcend the chaos. At the very least, he was moving in the right direction, albeit slowly. Outside the 9 zones, the chaos was completely silent. Then, Mo Bao spoke. Qin committed treason and violated the dignity of a Chaos Supreme Realm expert. Therefore, he was killed. Mo Bao's voice was filled with killing intent as he continued. The Chaos Supreme Realm expert did not attack the human race because the human race wasn't worthy of his attention. However, we should resolve this issue for the Chaos Supreme Realm expert and annihilate the human race. The moment he said that, the various forces present were shocked. The Chaos Supreme Realm expert had made a move and killed Qin. However, the human race was spared. Was this due to benevolence? It definitely was not. The human race was simply unworthy of the Chaos Supreme Realm expert's attention and action. If they attacked now and destroyed the human race, would they not be able to get into that expert's good books? No matter what, it was an opportunity to gain favor with a legendary existence. Realizing this, the experts of the major forces all erupted with powerful auras, locking onto Chu, Sha, and Ji. Shi, are you going to offend the Chaos Supreme Realm expert and continue to protect the human race? Even your master would join forces with us if he knew about this. Mo Bao looked at Goddess Shi and said coldly. So what if he was the immortal ancestor? No matter how powerful the ancestor was, he was not a Chaos Supreme Realm expert. The same was true for the other 3 ancestors. Goddess Zai's expression turned complicated. Even if she stayed out of it, the other experts of the immortal race would not. This time, the human race was truly in danger of being annihilated. Chu's expression darkened. He was no longer calm. No matter how unparalleled his schemes and strength were, he was helpless in the face of such a crisis. Once this matter spread throughout the chaos, the human race would become the target of the major forces in the chaos thanks to this legendary existence. Sha's aura erupted as he brandished his saber. He was already prepared to fight to the death. Ji's expression was calm. Even if the human race was in danger, it was limited to the chaos. It would not affect the 9 zones. The human race would not be exterminated. He was not worried about being targeted. After all, the Supreme Lord was also a Chaos Supreme Realm expert. Chu, today is the day you die. Mo Bao's aura surged, and his demonic power began to churn. Yao, it's time to make your move. Yao naturally stood forth. Chu looked around. They had already been locked onto by the auras of the various experts. There was almost no way to escape. Kun Ji Yu, who had already dispersed his world and Dao path, began to condense them once more to recover. Chu looked at Zan and Shui Lian. This is a calamity for the human race. It has nothing to do with you. You may leave. Zan and Shui Lian did not move, but their expressions were determined. Ting looked at his sister and panicked. He said, "Sister, don't be foolish." "Yes, don't be foolish," Chu nodded. For the first time, Ting's impression of Chu improved. Mo Bao charged over. "Chu, it's time for your human race to be eradicated. Stop struggling." Chu looked at Mo Bao, his gaze sharp. "Mo Bao, even if I die, I will drag you down with me." At this moment, Chu's world manifested and transformed into a sword. This was the first time Chu had revealed his abilities. Before that, even if he attacked, and even if he was in danger, he had not gone all out. At this moment, he had reached a point where he could not retreat and where no schemes would help. He could only give it his all. He swung his sword. Mo Bao's expression changed. This sword seemed to be restraining his Dao path. Chu's world had extremely strong defensive and restraining powers. After it turned into a sword, it gained an incredible amount of offensive power. In front of Shui Lian, a wave of light rippled. Her expression was firm, and she had no intention of retreating. The 9 tails behind Mei spread out into space like 9 Dao paths. She sighed and said, "Where else can I go? I can only follow you." The experts all released their auras and locked onto Chu's group, slowly surrounding them. Tai was anxious, and the jade talisman appeared in his hand. Chong looked at him and said, "Tai, think carefully. If you interfere, even the old ancestor won't be able to handle the consequences." Tai gritted his teeth. "I can't hide. I'll look for Taoist brother." He was anxious. It was very likely that Taoist brother was a legendary Chaos Supreme Realm expert. However, he was unable to make contact. The jade talisman exuded a terrifying aura, suppressing the tense atmosphere. All the experts looked at Tai, and at the jade talisman in his hand. Tai, don't interfere, Chu sighed. Tai sneered. There's more than one Chaos Supreme Realm expert. Taoist brother is also Chaos Supreme Realm expert. With him as my backing, what do I have to fear? Chu was stunned. All of the experts were stunned. Taoist brother is a Chaos Supreme Realm expert? Chu asked in disbelief. Of course, Tai said with certainty. At this time, even if Taoist brother was not, he had to be. He silently apologized to Taoist brother in his heart. Tai, why are you deceiving yourself? Mo Bao snorted coldly. Do you think anyone will believe you? That jade talisman is powerful, but it doesn't have the slightest trace of supreme power. How could it be a gift from a Chaos Supreme Realm expert? The rest of the experts nodded silently. What right did Tai have to call this Taoist brother person a Chaos Supreme Realm expert? He just didn't want to be too ostentatious, that's why it doesn't contain any supreme power. Tai was a little anxious. However, who would believe that? Chu looked at him and said, Tai, don't interfere. You've helped me too much already. I owe you too much. Take Tai away, he said to Chong. Chong sighed. He raised his hand and tried to grab Tai. Tai was furious. You all think I'm trash, right? Today, I'll kill you experts who have transcended the world creator realm and show you who's boss. The jade talisman began to pulsate. A faint ripple appeared, locking onto Mo Bao. Mo Bao, I'm going to kill you. Mo Bao's expression changed drastically. The power within that jade talisman was not something he could resist. Immediately, a huge black boulder appeared in his hand. The huge boulder was placed in front of him to shield him, and he infused his demonic power into it. It started to emit terrifying power. The experts' expressions changed. The power of the demon ancestor. Mo Bao's expression was extremely gloomy. This boulder was infused with his master's power and could only be used once. It could be considered his life-saving trump card. Even when Mo Yao was in a life-and-death situation, he was unwilling to use it. However, the power contained within the jade talisman was too dangerous. Suddenly, a powerful aura burst forth from the 9 zones, and a large halberd flew toward Mo Bao. The sudden turn of events caused many experts' expressions to change. A halberd, Qin's weapon, Mo Bao roared and punched the incoming halberd. Boom, his fist shattered, and he was sent flying back. His aura was thrown into disarray. The shattered fist soon recovered as it was infused with the power of his Tao path. With a gloomy and grave expression, he looked toward the direction where the halberd had come from. A figure exuding extraordinary martial prowess flew over slowly. He was wearing golden armor and looked majestic. His strength was terrifying, and the power of the laws surrounded him. However, it did not seem to be the power of the laws of the great Tao. Qin, all of the experts were shocked. Qin did not die. How was that possible? He had been attacked by a Chaos Supreme Realm expert. Qin's aura was completely different from before. It made him look even more majestic and overbearing. His golden armor made him look even more mighty. Could it be that this was Qin's true body? However, there was no way that the Chaos Supreme expert had only killed a clone. Qin held the halberd in his hand and charged over. Mo Bao, I'll kill you today. He glanced at his surroundings and sneered, do you really think that Chaos Supreme Realm experts are omnipotent? Do you really think that there's only one Chaos Supreme Realm expert? To those who want to destroy the human race and curry favor with that expert, be prepared to seek the permission of me and my halberd. At this moment, Qin was incomparably domineering, and his aura shook the surroundings. Even Chong seemed weak in comparison. At this moment, Qin sighed in his heart. The power of the heavenly Tao was extremely powerful and overbearing. Even though there were restrictions, this was still a good result for him. He looked at Huang Long and Yi Yujun, and his heart trembled. This dragon and that strange bird actually came from the heavenly Tao. In terms of status, they were above him. After all, Huang Long and Yi Yujun were once creatures of the great Tao. They were born from the great Tao and their origin was related to the supreme laws of the chaos. Their transformation into creatures of the heavenly Tao further enhanced their strength and capabilities. Moreover, their relationship with Chu Zan was much closer than Qin's. It was inevitable that they would have a higher status. Qin had returned. The experts who had wanted to exterminate the human race and kill Chu and the others all retreated at this moment. Qin was not dead, and the information he revealed was a little too shocking. Since that Chaos Supreme Realm expert had failed to kill Qin, it was very likely that another Chaos Supreme Realm expert had made a move and saved Qin. They thought of Qian, who after sacrificing himself, still had traces of his existence present in the river of time. All these signs indicated that a Chaos Supreme Realm expert was looking out for the human race. If they were to participate in the battle between two Chaos Supreme experts, they would definitely die. In an instant, the auras that had locked onto Chu and the others dissipated. All of the experts returned to their camps. It was as if nothing had happened just now. Kun Ji Yu, who was condensing his Dao path and world again, decisively dispersed them again. He was playing dead. Mo Bao's expression changed. However, Qin was already in front of him. Today is the day I slay you. As Qin's halberd came crashing down at Mo Bao, a golden light blossomed as the power of the heavenly Dao destroyed everything in its path. Even the space around them started to crack and shatter. Mo Bao was shocked. How did Qin suddenly become so powerful? Also, this did not seem to be the power of the great Dao. He roared furiously as his body increased in size. The huge boulder was still shielding him. At this critical moment, Mo Bao decisively used his life-saving trump card. The demon ancestor's power burst forth, and the black boulder transformed into a terrifying demonic claw that tried to grab and crush Qin. The surrounding experts all had stern expressions. The power of the demon ancestor. Chang's expression was solemn. As expected of the demon ancestor, his power was brutal and had the capability to destroy and plunder everything. Qin roared. His body grew to the size of a mountain, and his golden armor shone blindingly as the power of the laws surrounded him. The halberd and the demonic claw collided. Boom! Golden light shot out in all directions. Then, the halberd shook and released the power of laws. Its power suddenly increased. Boom! The halberd instantly crushed the demonic claw. Qin did not stop as he struck with his halberd again. How is that possible? Mo Bao's face turned pale. That was a portion of his master's power. Of course, it only contained his master's power from a distant past, which was equivalent to an attack from an expert who had reached the 70 million mark. However, that power was actually no match for Qin. Demon Slayer! Qin roared. At that moment, Mo Bao was shocked to find that it was bound by a powerful and strange force that suppressed his demonic power and immobilized him. Boom! Mo Bao instantly turned into dust. His world collapsed and his Dao path shattered. The chaotic space trembled. The spectators were all shocked. Mo Bao, another disciple of the demon ancestor, had fallen. What kind of power had Qin used? It even seemed to be stronger than the power of the great Dao. Mo Bao died, and Mo Shui and Mo Shi were terrified and fled. They knew that if they stayed here any longer, they would definitely die. Where are you running off to? After Qin killed Mo Bao, he directly integrated the power he siphoned from the latter's Dao path and world into the heavenly Dao. In an instant, the heavenly Dao underwent a faint change. It seemed that a certain heavenly Dao law had been perfected and completed, one that was related to the demon race. If he killed a few more experts, the heavenly Dao would definitely improve, and he would become stronger in turn. The demon race came from the 9 zones, and their Dao paths were originally created in the 9 zones. Even though these demon race experts had severed the source of their Dao paths, there was still a faint connection when they fused. Now that the heavenly Dao had devoured the great Dao of the 9 zones, it naturally inherited everything that the great Dao once possessed. As a divine being of the heavenly Dao, Qin could use the power of the heavenly Dao to exert pressure on the Dao paths of the demon race, weakening them by 30%. He would be able to do this for any Dao path that originated in the 9 zones, even if they had severed the source of their Dao paths. Demon Slayer! Qin Yu waved his halberd and charged toward Mo Shui, who suddenly stopped. His Dao path seemed to have been restrained by an unknown force. To experts, such pauses at crucial moments were definitely fatal. Mo Shui's expression changed dramatically. He knew that he could no longer escape. Boom! He decisively dispersed his Dao path and whirled into the chaos. The halberd swept toward him. Boom! Pieces of the dispersed Dao paths and world were wiped out. However, Mo Shui did not die. However, it would take him a very long time to recover. This was the one method experts who had transcended the world creator realm could use as a last resort to escape death. Of course, it was possible to completely destroy all of the remnant traces of the expert's Dao path and world, thus killing him. However, in order to do so, one had to have the strength to completely track and destroy every last trace in the area, which meant that one had to be far stronger than the target. Qin snorted. It was enough to destroy 90% of Mo Shui's origin essence. It would be countless years from now before the other party could recover their body, and even longer to reach the same level of strength they had before. As for Mo Shi, Qin did not pursue him. Moshi was too weak, and not worth the effort. Qin stood proudly in the chaos and looked down at the various experts. He said coldly, "Who else wants to destroy the human race?" The surroundings were silent. Are the forces of the ancient chaos world going to exterminate the human race? Quote. The halberd was pointed at the ancient chaos world's camp. We don't have such intentions. The ancient chaos world has always been cooperating with the human race, so there is no way we would try to exterminate the human race, an expert from the ancient chaos world said solemnly. Yes, that's definitely the case. The other experts from the ancient chaos world agreed in a hurry. Qin was too strong, and had easily defeated Mo Bao despite the latter using a portion of the power of the demon ancestor. Mo Shui was even more helpless against him. From this, one could see how powerful Qin was. Furthermore, he had survived an attack from a Chaos Supreme Realm expert, so there was definitely an equally strong backer behind him. Qin looked at the immortal race and his gaze landed on Yao and Piao. What about the immortal race? He asked coldly. Miao is dead, Yao sighed, so the immortal race naturally won't continue to target the human race. Qin's gaze lingered on Piao for a moment, but he did not say anything. Instead, he looked at the major forces that had come from the chaos. This is a matter regarding the 9 zones. None of you are qualified to participate. It's time for you to leave. He directly and tyrannically expelled the experts from the various major forces. Despite this, no one opposed him. There were already experts leading their troops away. If you don't leave, then you'll be laid to rest here forever. Qin looked at the experts who were hesitating to leave. Holding the halberd, he flew over slowly. His aura began to rise again. The hesitating factions all had supreme experts who had transcended the world creator realm, and even ancient chaos gods, backing them up. Naturally, they had a certain level of confidence. However, when he thought about how even a chaos supreme realm expert had failed to kill Qin, they knew that they were outmatched even when it came to backers. This matter was no longer something they could decide. In the face of Qin's might, they could only retreat helplessly. As the major forces from the chaos retreated, only the races of the 9 zones and the races from the ancient chaos world were left. The races of the ancient chaos world belonged to this region of the chaos, and before the great Tao's power of rejection appeared, they had been in constant contact with the 9 zones. However, there was one race that was not present. The current demon race had become a weak race after the deaths of so many of their experts who had transcended the world creator realm. Those that had not been killed had fled. Even the demon race's 9 extreme Daoyuan realm experts in the ancient chaos world had escaped into the chaos. They were afraid that the human race would seek revenge and massacre them. This was an incredibly awkward situation. The various races had always been targeting and suppressing the human race. However, the tables were turned now, and everyone was worried about the possibility of the human race settling old scores. The immortal race had obviously given up and stopped targeting the human race. Thanks to Goddess She, the celestial race would no longer target the human race, and neither would the dragons or fiery phoenixes. No one else would be able to put up a fight against Qin. Therefore, the experts of the various races all chose to remain low-key to avoid being noticed. Qin looked around and was silent for a moment. He then said, the 9 zones no longer exist. The world has changed, and the great Tao has disappeared. The experts were stunned. The 9 zones no longer existed. The great Tao had also disappeared. They looked at the 9 zones in confusion. How could such a thing be possible? Chu was deep in thought. Qin had mentioned the heavenly Tao to him previously as well. It seemed that Qin's current status was different from before, and he seemed to have formed a connection with the heavenly Tao. Furthermore, he was infused with a great amount of the heavenly Tao's fate energy. This was a good thing. At the very least, it would ensure the prosperity of the human race in the 9 zones. Qin, how could the 9 zones and great Tao disappear? Yao asked in surprise. Was the 9 zones not right there in front of them? Qin glanced at him and said, although the world exists, the 9 zones don't. The great Tao of the 9 zones has disappeared with it. Everyone was stunned. How was that possible? Today, there is only the heavenly Tao in this world, Qin said in a deep voice, and I am a divine being of the heavenly Tao. No one can enter the heavenly Tao without permission. Anyone who enters the heavenly Tao must obey the order of the heavenly Tao. Otherwise, they will be executed. The heavenly Tao. Yao and the other experts looked at Qin with shock. At this moment, they seemed to have realized something. However, they could not bring themselves to believe it. The great Tao of the 9 zones was not an ordinary great Tao. It possessed the fate energy of the chaos and was connected to the supreme laws of the chaos. The source and foundation of the Tao paths of many supreme experts in the chaos could be found within the great Tao of the 9 zones. How had this heavenly Tao replaced it? They knew what this meant, but no one could bring themselves to say it. What would happen to the chaos? Could it be that from now on, all living beings in the chaos would have to cultivate under the heavenly Tao? The emergence of the heavenly Tao had replaced the great Tao of the 9 zones, but why did it not trigger the descent of the supreme laws of the chaos? Could it be that the heavenly Tao was also connected to the supreme laws of the chaos? If that was the case, it meant that the heavenly Tao had endless potential. Qin had actually become a divine being of the heavenly Tao. How did he do it? Was it related to the fusion between his clone and his true body? For some reason, the experts felt that there was more to this than met the eye. It was as if a hand was controlling everything from behind the scenes. Their expressions were ugly. In today's world, the human race reigned supreme, and they would only get stronger and stronger as time passed. There was no way they could not stop the rise of the human race now. Qin surveyed the surroundings and took in the expressions of the experts from the various races. It's not impossible for members of your races to enter the world, but only those below the Daoyuan realm may do so, he said. As soon as he said that, the faces of the experts turned even uglier. If only those below the Daoyuan realm could enter, would that not be akin to courting death? They would be enslaved by the human race, who already had Daoyuan realm experts within the world. How could they compete with the human race without strength? They would likely be forced to pay tribute to the human race and acquiesce to their whims. The tables were truly turned. Instead of entering and becoming slaves, it was better to give up on entering this world. However, recalling the changes in the depths of the chaos, they realized that this was the only feasible way to escape danger. If only those below the Daoyuan realm could enter, it was probably because they had not opened their Tao paths yet. Therefore, when they did reach the Daoyuan realm and opened their Tao paths, these Tao paths would be assimilated into the heavenly Tao. Qin knew what the ancestors of the various races were thinking. However, he was now a divine being of the heavenly Tao, so he had to consider the development and improvement of the heavenly Tao. He could no longer be solely concerned about the human race. Diversity would contribute to the growth and development of the heavenly Tao. That being said, he was still a human inside, and one of the ancestors of the human race. It was impossible for him to not be biased toward the human race. In actual fact, Qin was helpless about this situation. After all, he had not wanted to become a divine being of the heavenly Tao, and these responsibilities had been foisted upon him. In any case, the heavenly Tao laws would not allow him to destroy the other races, leaving only the human race in this world. The human race could not be allowed to exist alone. If only the human race existed, internal strife would be commonplace within the human race. The world is divided into 3 realms: heaven, mortal, and the netherworld. The heaven realm is where those who have reached the Daoyuan realm. Those who reside there are restricted by the laws of the heavenly Tao laws, and cannot descend personally into the mortal realm. The mortal realm is where all beings below the Daoyuan realm live. After passing the heavenly tribulation, they too will be able to transcend to the next realm. When the ancestors heard this, they were not too surprised about the tribulation. Cultivation within the great Tao was also the same. The lower realm is the netherworld. The netherworld contains the reincarnation cycle. After the living die, they will be reincarnated through the reincarnation cycle. Qin introduced the netherworld realm and reincarnation. At the same time, he also looked at Ji. This guy had remained silent this entire time, yet he was the one who knew the most about the current situation. Qin was a little frustrated that Ji had not warned or prepared him for this. He probably knew more secrets than he did. After all, his incarnation was cultivating within the reincarnation cycle. If you have the ability, you can comprehend the reincarnation Great Tao principle. If you do so, you can retain your origin essence and even your memories. You can reincarnate and recultivate again. This reincarnation isn't a simple one. It's a true new beginning. Even your talent and aptitude will be new. It's a completely new life. The experts were stunned once again. All of this sounded way too unbelievable. In an instant, they thought of many ways to make use of the reincarnation cycle to increase their levels of talent and breakthrough. Of course, the premise was that he could avoid the order of reincarnation and prevent it from erasing one's life imprint. It required an extremely deep comprehension of the Great Tao reincarnation principle. At this moment, all of the experts suddenly realized that the world they once knew was no longer the same as the 9 zones from before. It was no wonder the world's fate energy seemed so different.